smaller items and then a large one at the end. So I'm going to remind all my counselor colleagues to try and be concise in what you say. We want everything to be said. We're particularly here. All of these are open for public hearing. We definitely want to hear members of the public, but let's try and not be here too late at night while still accomplishing everything we need to do. So the first thing before us tonight is item number 260-25, which is a request to allow retaining wall exceeding 4 feet in height at 82 to 84 East Side Parkway. We'll hear first from the planning department about this.
Yes.
I think.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me as I go ahead and do that. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and begin. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. All right. So good evening, members of the Land Use Committee and the Planning Board. I'm Sondria Berman. I'm the Senior Planner for the City of Newton. I'm going to proceed with the planning presentation for petition 260-25, which is a special permit site plan approval to construct a retaining wall over 4 feet in height. As you'll recall, the public hearing for this petition was originally opened on October 7th, and it's continued to tonight's meeting. Looking here at the aerial map, the subject property is a 7,570 square foot lot that's located in a multi-residence 1 district, and it's adjacent to Newton's Cabot Park. The property is currently under construction with an active building permit for a by right project to raise a 2-family dwelling. Abutting properties within the MR1 district consist of residential uses of similar lot sizes improved with single and 2-family dwellings, and the surrounding neighborhood includes a single residence 2 district to the east, public open space to the west, Cabot Park, and a manufacturing district to the north. The zoning relief that's requested here, the petitioner is seeking special permit site plan approval to construct a retaining wall over 4 feet in height along the rear lot line that replaces an existing but now demolished 2-foot retaining wall. In terms of project updates, the petitioner has provided a revised site plan proposing to move the retaining wall 2 feet away from the rear property line. However, the length, height, and design of the retaining wall remain consistent with the retaining wall that was proposed on the original plan, and it has a height that ranges from 0.5 to 7 feet. So the relief here remains ultimately the same. Criteria to consider when reviewing this request: that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height as designed, that the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the proposed retaining wall, and that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. Here, this is the retaining wall relief specific to that. The lot prevents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property such that it could not be improved without the implementation of a retaining wall over 4 feet in height. That the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height will not adversely impact adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public. And finally, that the retaining wall height is the minimum structure necessary to allow the subject property to be reasonably utilized. And in terms of some of planning's comments, the proposed retaining wall in height is due to the challenging topography of the lot that slopes downward from the rear lot line. The height of the retaining wall will range from 0.6 feet to at the end to 7 feet at the highest point. The proposed retaining wall will allow for a regrading of the rear yard to create a mostly level backyard area with a 1 to 2 foot change in grade. And based on the proposed plan, the stormwater runoff will be directed west towards the front of the property, towards East Side Parkway. And that finally, the lot remains compliant with other zoning requirements, including FAR, frontage, open space, lot coverage, height, stories, minimum lot area, and zoning setbacks. And I believe that concludes the planning presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Berman. Now, someone from the petitioner would like to speak to this? Nico, I see you. Go for it.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So I appreciate everyone taking the time to hear me on this this evening. Before I sort of jump into the presentation, I would like to just let everyone know that since our last meeting, I did attempt to have a neighborhood meeting. I knocked on all of my, neighbors and abutters' doors, trying to get some people live, as well as sent out a second round of certified letters, basically explaining that I would like to meet everyone, in person. Happy to do it via a neighborhood meeting or individually. I only got 3 responses, all from people who are direct abutters. 2 of them said they had no problem with the proposal itself, and didn't feel it necessary to meet in public, or I'm sorry, in person. And the last response was from the neighbor directly behind me, who I did meet in person, and who, after showing him everything in a real world application, had no problem with the wall itself. His only concern remains with the property line, and to address that point, there was a couple of things that I did take into consideration. The first one is, just to be safe, I revised the proposal to pull the retaining wall 2 feet off of the property line, in hopes that my surveyor is not off by more than 2 feet. Additionally, I offered to present the individual with that proposal, as well as an as-built after the fact. And I did, get all of his contact information so we could stay in contact throughout the entire process, to which he seemed very pleased. He's a very nice gentleman, obviously just a little concerned over where the property line was. And this just goes back because he thought it was in a different location based on the way the hill is shaped. But, he's also going to have his own survey done just to verify the existing dimensions. And so that being said, this is the property in question, directly in front of us here, the green with the cedar shingles. This obviously is a different structure than what Google Street View or the assessor's database will have. As noted, this originally was a by right project, and on the by right project, there is a 4-foot retaining wall, proposed on the lot line again, which would be by right. But in this instance, that wall, even though it works on the engineering plans for all real world application, it doesn't actually help us in any way. And so the reason I took this photo is because I think it's important that you really can't see the backyard from the street. So as far as visibility goes, or anything related to traffic or parking, it doesn't really impact anything. This is truly tucked away in the backyard. Why isn't this working here? There we go. And so if I, walk down the street and take a different angle, it's the same story. You really can't see it. If we go the other way, again, this retaining wall is not really visible from a public way. It truly is tucked into the side of a hill in the backyard. And the reason that we feel that this retaining wall is appropriate is really because of what was already existing both to our left and to our right. So if you're on East Side Parkway and you're facing this property, the house to the left already has a couple of terraced retaining walls and a really large fence. And so the lower red arrow is pointing to, a more modern interlocking block style retaining wall that is 6 feet tall. You'll notice the 6-foot white vinyl fence right next to it. And then on top of that, there is about 3 or 4 feet back, there is another smaller retaining wall made out of what looks like cobblestones that's about 3 feet in height. So if you take those two together, you're about 9 feet tall. And then directly on top of that is a 6-foot fence. So there's really a massive sort of wall in our neighbor's backyard. I think it's worth noting that on this side of the property, our proposed retaining wall is actually lower than the 6 feet that this neighbor has. And so if we go to the other side, it's really, really tough to see through the protective fencing and the shrubs. But the red arrow on the right, sort of in the middle of the screen, there's about a 2.5 foot tall retaining wall. And then if you step it back about another 7 or 8 feet to the left red arrow, there's a retaining wall that, based on my measurements, for knowing how big those blocks are, and with the 3-inch cap, that wall is about 4 feet in height. So again, those walls span 2 separate properties, and they are quote unquote terraced, even though it doesn't really meet the definition because it's 2 separate lots. But in order to sort of preserve, their own backyards, both lots have retaining walls. And so if you sort of jump off of from where I was standing, this wall we left in place during construction. So this is actually the old garage. And this is the rear wall this garage was sort of tucked into the side of the hill. And we left it there specifically to minimize any sort of erosion. And in this picture, this sort of I shape is where the bottom of the wall actually is, and then where the top of the wall sits currently. And this wall, as it stands today, is actually 8 feet tall. So if I was to remove all of that dirt in front of this wall and expose basically what is the footing, this wall is 8 feet tall. So again, our proposed wall is actually a foot shorter than what is already there. And this is just a view sort of standing on top of that wall, looking into what would be the backyard. You'll notice that it's relatively small. And when we actually fill this back in, it's going to be a very sharp and steep pitch towards the house, which obviously can create issues for, water entering a basement. It makes the backyard basically unusable. There's a number of things that we just, would be able to mitigate without having this pitched directly at the back of the house. And then if you can see my mouse, in the sort of upper right corner here, this wood retaining wall, if I actually go back a couple of slides, which you can again see right here, this again is about 6 to 12 inches taller than what we are actually proposing. So the top of this wall will actually be a little bit lower. This existing wood retaining wall was part of more of a terraced design before, which, it did work when the house was a completely different shape. And you can actually see the old pitch of the backyard. It really was a pretty sharp pitch towards the street. So we're trying to avoid that and make this backyard a little more usable. And as far as the lot itself, this was the original proposal. As you can see, the original wall, which is this line here right on the property line, again, just to be a courteous neighbor, and so there's no confusion, this is the original. I just highlighted it in red, just to be a good neighbor, because that's what we'd like to be. The new proposal pulled it 2 feet off the property line, which again, our neighbor was very happy to hear. And that is pretty much it. So I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Nico. Of the public who would like to make comments about this proposal, either in the chamber or on Zoom. If you're on Zoom, raise your virtual hand or wave at us. Don't see anyone in the chamber. No. We can take this into committee. After Nico's discussion, though, I'm just going to mention, Ms. Berman, I think I had written to you, but I think it would be helpful if the land use memo accurately reflects the height of that existing wall, which in your memo is referred to as 2 feet high, and Nico just told us it's 8 feet high. But just for accuracy, perhaps it's possible to make that memo reflect the actual height of the existing wall. Let's just take this into committee now. Any member? Yes, Councilor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as you know, we both did a site visit here. This was actually initially a by right, and the house was substantially built by the time we had gone over there. We were a neighbor behind was concerned about the retaining wall moving onto what he thought was his property. That was our initial concern. So that was really what we wanted to address, and I believe that has been resolved. And as I think most members know, it's not the purview of the Land Use Committee to decide on property disputes. But Nico did speak with that neighbor who was satisfied with moving the retaining wall two feet away. In addition, he did do what we asked with a neighborhood meeting, which it turned out no one attended, but he did reach out to neighbors. 3 responded that they couldn't attend. So I really have no concerns at this time. And when the time's right, I'm ready to close the public hearing and move approval.
Thank you, Councilor Leary. I will look forward to that. It is in your ward. I'm just going to follow up with one thing you said and Nico mentioned. the potential questioning or maybe dispute about the property line is no concern of the city council. That's something that if it turns out there's a discrepancy between the two surveys, will be resolved in land court between the two property owners. It's nothing that we can consider here tonight when we make our decision. Any other comments from councilors? If not, I'm going to also mention that we've been joined in the chamber by Councillor Albright and on Zoom by Councillor Lipoff. Oh, Zvi, I see your hand up on Zoom. What would you, go ahead and you're unmuted, you may speak.
Yes, hi. Thank you for taking my call. I tried earlier to raise my hand, but for some reason it didn't work. I just wanted to correct one statement that was made by the developer. During our discussion, the information that was conveyed to me was that the actual retaining wall is going to be 1 to 2 feet behind the current retaining wall, which is very different from 1 to 2 feet from the property line. So that's comment number one. Comment number two is that towards the back of the property, there is a huge tree about 3.5 to 4 feet in diameter. That tree is not indicated on the drawing that was provided to the committee and is included in the special permit. If the retaining wall is moved indeed within 2 feet of the property line, the extensive root system of that tree will be destroyed. And I therefore, when I met with the developer, he assured me that no tree is going to be damaged, but that goes in hand with the moving of the retaining wall 2 feet behind its existing location, not 2 feet from the property line.
Thank you. Is that everything you wanted to say right now?
Yeah, that basically, if that can be addressed and if the tree can be preserved, then sure, we will not have any problem with the location of the retaining wall if it is indeed moved 1 to 2 feet behind its current location, which would still leave a very large portion of the backyard intact and flat.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if between Nico or the planning department, we have a plan that shows existing conditions, including the location of abutting trees. Excuse me, and if either of you have that, it would be great to pull it up. While that happens, if that's going to happen, Nico, would you like to address your rear abutters' concerns about that tree?
Yes, absolutely. So, we do have a tree permit that does take into consideration all of the trees on our lot, as well as any trees in, critical excavation zones. And the tree sort of in question is 100% on I should say, based on the stakes that our surveyor laid out. The tree in question is most certainly on the neighbor's property, my abutter's property. So, we have no intention of disturbing it. It was another consideration when we agreed to pull the wall further from the property line. And, to that point, yes, we will do everything we can as to not disturb the root system. We are very familiar with the tree ordinances here in Newton, and we work very closely with Mark Welch on every project that we have, and that is the last thing that we would want to have happen is a violation of a separate ordinance when just after getting approval to do something that is not by right. So Zvi, you're being heard, and I can assure you that that tree is not going to be disturbed.
So you will be meeting with Mark Welch before construction around the removal of the wall or installation happens to ensure compliance with the tree ordinance and the protection of those roots.
Correct. So actually, Mark Welch, in the special permit application, did send me a message just noting that should this be approved, as presented, that we do have to revise the tree permit. So that is most certainly going to happen before we are able to construct the wall.
Thank you very much. Councillor Malik?
Thank you. So I don't have any confidence at all that that tree is going to be protected. The only tree permit I see is the one from last November. The diagram of where trees were located and the arborist perimeters, arcs around the different trees for the tree protection zone are completely at odds with the idea of creating a retaining wall 2 feet from the property line. And furthermore, this developer's project over at 49 Dalby Street, which had a similar situation with 44 inch or so tree that was supposed to be protected, and other trees. I was over there about a month ago and saw none of the fencing up, no indication of tree protection, and the whole site had been, excavated a couple of feet down. We haven't even seen an updated tree permit on this, so I would have a real problem voting for this. And furthermore, I think the time to worry about the undersized backyard was when you were designing the house, plunking down this huge footprint so that hardly any backyard was left, and then coming in saying you want a retaining wall because the backyard isn't big enough. It's a bit like the old story of killing your parents and complaining that you're an orphan. Those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maliki. Karen, excuse me for being hoarse. Karen, you have your hand up again? It was up and then it was down. I just want to make sure you don't want to speak.
Yes, no, please.
Oh,
Hi,
that's
it's
me
actually
again?
not Karen. It's Scott Prushik. I'm Karen's husband. I'm just using her
Oh,
computer.
okay.
So we live at 211 Dorset Road, which is also in Newton, of course, but not next door to them. But I am Svi and Rivka's son-in-law, so I also wanted to say something on their behalf as longtime Newton residents. And I think that I just want to reiterate that it sounds like from the conversation of what the developer and what Svi had, that where this retaining wall was going is not exactly where it is in the plans, meaning his discussion with Svi was that it was going to be 2 feet back from the current retaining wall, not 2 feet back from the property line. That requires significant excavation of what I think they think is their backyard and has been for years, and they thought was when they moved in. So I also think that moving forward with allowing the special permit and building the retaining wall without allowing them the opportunity to get a land survey doesn't seem fair at all. And it seems like we're allowing, and I don't mean to say anything to offend Nico, I don't know him personally, but it seems like we are allowing developers to come in and build, as was just mentioned, build houses that are too big for the property and then make adjustments afterwards to allow for this without regards to people that actually live here, allowing developers to make a lot of money, but affecting the people who actually live in Newton.
Okay, thank you. Nico, did you find a plan that showed the location of the trees? And also it may be helpful to pull up that plan again that showed the location of the wall to better understand the question about, are you moving it in 2 feet from the present location, from where the wall is, or closer, just so we all have some clarity on that?
Sure. So I'll share my screen again. And so this is, if you can see my screen, this is the original existing conditions plan. And so these trees in the corner here are very much still here. The very large tree in question is actually beyond our property line, beyond the stake, like I mentioned, and is somewhere up here. So it will very much be out of the way as far as our retaining wall is concerned. And again, we have a tree permit that has actually already been revised at one point in time, again, during the by right construction of this project to address how challenging the back of this lot already is. Again, the original proposal had the retaining wall, along the property line, which again, I just would really like to make a point and say that, as a by right project, I would be allowed to put a retaining wall on what I believe is my land up to 4 feet tall. Moving the wall or the proposed wall 2 feet off of the property line. When we had met on site, this is the wooden wall right here. So pushing it back about 2 feet beyond this wooden wall, where that wall lands is going to be somewhere in here, but it's just not going to be on the property line. It's going to be no less than 2 feet off of the property line, but it is going to land, somewhere in here, wherever we dig. I mean, we can't get into exact specifics if it's 2.5 feet or something like that behind this existing wooden wall. That will be just up to the conditions of the lot itself. But, there's the walls that are there are taller already, and we're just trying to construct something to help level out the yard a little more. And just again, to Julia's point, we did take into consideration the usability of this lot. And we are here just to ask for a couple of extra feet just to make the lot a little more flat. So one thing I'd also like to point out is that the relief in the way of height is deceiving, in the sense that when you hear retaining wall at 4 feet tall, this is what you picture. And then when you ask for a wall that's taller than what's allowed by right, the top of the wall in your head, your initial reaction, and mine would be the same thing too, is to go like this. And that's actually not the case. The reason this wall is actually getting taller is because from where the top of the by right 4-foot wall is proposed, we actually want the bottom of the wall to go lower, making the yard flatter. And obviously we ran that through engineering and made sure that it didn't affect the grading, with all the new grading bylaws with the perimeter and the average existing grade. So it doesn't actually affect that, but that's just another thing that I think is worth considering.
Nika, we do understand that, excuse me, and we do understand that it's because of the grading, but this isn't comparable to a by right situation because the wall you're installing is going to be over 4 feet. So that's what puts a special permit into practice here. As I understand what you're saying, the wall is going to go in behind the existing wooden falling down road wall, but about 2 feet in from the property line. So it's going to be located back in between where the existing, excuse me, wall is and the property line, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The
So
proposal.
Svi, I just want to check back with him. Svi, is that how you understand it now? We want you to understand this as well as us. And then we're going to move on because we've got a lot before us. We've already spent a half hour on this project that I thought would take us 10 minutes. Svi, how are you? Do you understand the location of this wall?
I understand the location of the wall. I understand the location of the proposed wall as it appears in the drawing. And I just want to correct one point, and that is that the location of the large tree, the 3.5 feet tree, is actually on the property line. It's not where it was indicated on the drawing.
Okay. Nonetheless, we have had expressed concern from committee members and from Councillor Maliki that that tree needs to be protected, and we're going to figure out a way to make sure that that is part of the council order if it's not currently done. And I'm going to ask planning for the wording of that when we get to the council order. Are there any other questions from committee members or other councilors? No. Let's move back to Councillor Leary, who's going to make some motions here.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm certainly willing to also check in with Mark Welsh on this tree permit and take a second look at the property as well. But I do have I have already made the motion to close the public hearing and to make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Let's vote on closing the public hearing first. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye. And
Anyone?
of course, it's subject to the changes.
Well, we're going to get to that when we get to the, but yes, thank you. Good point. Anyone opposed to closing the public hearing? Okay, we also have a motion to accept. And again, when we go through that and we hear the findings and conditions, excuse me, I'm very croaky. If there's a recommendation from the planning department or the law department about how to add sort of an extra protection around this tree, which has been pointed out, that would be appreciated. Let's hear back from planning.
Okay, there. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the draft order. Bear with me as I go ahead and do that. Okay. So here we have the draft order. I'll proceed first with the findings and then we can work down to the conditions. First, that the site is an appropriate location for the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height, as it provides structural stability for the regrading of the rear yard. That the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height will not adversely affect the neighborhood because it will be placed along the rear property line and is not visible from the street. That the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height will not be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because it is located at the rear of the property and does not affect parking or pedestrian traffic. 4, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. 5, that the lot presents challenging topography, which limits the use of the property such that it could not be improved without the implementation of the retaining wall over 4 feet in height to maintain a level portion of the rear lot with a significant downward slope from the rear lot line. 6, that the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height will not adversely impact adjacent property, the neighborhood, or the public, as it is located at the rear of the property and is not easily visible from the street. And finally, that the proposed retaining wall over 4 feet in height is the minimum structure necessary to allow a subject property to be reasonably utilized and provide structural stability for the changes in grade in the rear yard. And as we move through here, you'll see the petition number, the petitioner. I'll ask that the petitioner confirm that these items are in fact correct. That it will be used for a 2-family dwelling and that the relief granted is to allow retaining wall, and I can make sure I make that singular, over 4 feet in height. And here we do have our standard conditions, our standard plan referencing condition, our standard building permit condition on item 2, and finally for item 3, our standard final inspection and engineering approval condition. I know that, Madam Chair, you mentioned wanting to add a condition in for the protection of the tree. I can definitely reach out. I can ask law if they'd like to speak to a particular language for that item. Also, the tree warden may have something that they recommend as well.
Madam Chair, if I can jump in here.
Yes, please, Mr. Lee, go ahead.
So I just want to emphasize that the tree ordinance has to be complied with. And as everyone in the chamber knows, or the councilors at least, the tree protection plan that has to be in place under the ordinance also includes the abutting property if, you know, it meets the certain requirements with regards to how close it is to the work that's being done, which it appears to be that set of circumstances here. And that's why they had a tree permit before. I understand it needs to be modified. So just to be clear, they're going to have to comply with that tree ordinance. I don't know what's meant by, you know, protection. I think what might be appropriate if the council wants some extra certainty here is maybe putting something along the lines of that the property owner will be required to fully comply with the tree ordinance, specifically as it pertains to, you know, the tree. We'll figure out how to identify it, but I think I know which one we're talking about. I'm looking at the photograph right now that is on the abutting property to the rear, or something along those lines. Is that adequate?
I think that sounds appropriate and helpful, given that this issue has been raised by an abutter and a counselor. So thank you. We can leave the wording to you folks to figure out before it comes to the full council. Thank you. Great.
Good. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Let's take a roll call.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs, Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo. Motion passes 7-0 with 1 absent.
Thank you. And then we'll see the wording when it comes back to us as the full council. Okay, so much for 10 minutes on that one. The next one. This is when we enter into a joint session with the Planning and Development Board because there's a request for rezoning on part of this project. We're talking about items number 306-25, which is the request to rezone 41 Farwell Street to a multi-residence 2. And connected to that is the special permit request number 307-25, which is to allow a 3-unit multifamily dwelling and the zone change from limited manufacturing to MR2, also at 41 Farwell Street. And again, first, we're going to hear from the planning department.
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time.
Thank you.
Okay. As long as everyone can see my screen, I'll proceed.
We can.
Good evening, everyone. And welcome everyone from the planning board as well. Sandra Berman, Senior Planner for the City of Newton. I'm going to proceed with the presentation for petition 306-25 and 307-25. First, we have the request for rezoning for a portion of Lot 1 at 41 Farwell Street, and then the related special permit site plan approval for petition 307-25 to allow for multifamily use for Lot 1 and non-accessory parking for Lot 2, dimensional relief, lighting, landscape screening, and regulatory parking waivers for both Lots 1 and Lot 2 at Farwell Street. All right, so you'll see here from the aerial map that the subject property is a 24,815 square foot lot located in a limited manufacturing district in Nonantum, which is close to the Charles River, which is pictured just north of the site. The site's current use is a non-accessory surfing parking lot with 46 stalls, utilized by abutting businesses at 26 Farwell Street. The subject property is located in a mixed-use area, which you can see, with an MR2 district to the north, east, and south, and a manufacturing district to the east. And surrounding residential properties include 2, 3, and multifamily dwellings to the north, east, and south, as well as varied commercial uses to the west that include retail, restaurant, office, and other businesses. I think it's helpful just to kind of break down this proposal because it sort of has 3 parts. So first, we have an approval not required, an A&R plan, where the petitioner is proposing to divide the parcel at 41 Farwell Street into 2 separate lots. There's Lot 1 of 10,723 square feet and Lot 2, which is 14,090 square feet. And then the second piece is the rezoning request, which is tied to the A&R plan, but it is only a rezoning for one of the 2 parcels, and that would be for Lot 1. And they're seeking to rezone from a limited manufacturing zone to a multi-residence 2 to construct a 3-unit multifamily residential project by special permit. And then Lot 2 is going to remain zoned the existing limited manufacturing and continue to be used as a non-accessory parking use. And finally, both lots are requesting special permit relief. Lot 1 is requesting relief for the proposed multifamily use, as well as parking relief, lighting plan, perimeter screening requirement relief. And Lot 2 is requesting relief for the use of the non-accessory parking, dimensional setbacks, accessible parking regulations, perimeter and landscape screening, and lighting plan waivers as well. And as you'll see here, we're going to go through the criteria. We've broken it down by the lot because, as we mentioned, this will become 2 separate new parcels. So we have here breaking down Lot 1. They're seeking to allow the multifamily dwelling, to allow tandem parking, to waive the perimeter screening requirements, and to waive lighting requirements. For Lot 2, Again, to allow the use of single-level non-accessory parking, to waive formula requirements for parking, to allow parking in the front and side setbacks, to waive the accessible stall width, to reduce minimum aisle for the driveway access, to waive perimeter screening, interior landscaping, and lighting requirements. Now, to break down criteria to consider for Lot 1, that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed multifamily dwelling is designed, that the proposed multifamily dwelling as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and that literal compliance with the required parking stall design standards for Lot 1 is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, depth, width, shape, or grade of the lot, or that such exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or the protection of environmental features. And in addition to Lot 1, the relief that literal compliance with the lighting requirements for parking facilities over 5 stalls is impracticable, again, due to the nature, use, location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, and that literal compliance with the landscape requirements for perimeter screening for parking facilities over 5 stalls for Lot 1 is also impracticable due to the nature, use, or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that the exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety. When reviewing the criteria for Lot 2, again, the same 4 criteria: that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed non-accessory parking use, that the proposed non-accessory parking use as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and that literal compliance with the dimensional parking requirements for the accessible stalls for Lot 2 is impracticable due to the nature of the use, the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that the exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or the environment. Additionally, that literal compliance with the parking regulations, the lighting requirements, the landscapes requirements for perimeter screening, and finally, the interior landscapes requirements are impracticable due to the nature of the use, the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that such exceptions would be in the public interest, the interest of safety, or the protection of the environment. So some things to consider when considering the rezoning petition for Lot 1. The zoning history for the neighborhood surrounding 41 Farwell Street reflects a mixed-use area. Initially, it was residential in the 1920s before becoming a manufacturing district in the 1930s, and then being rezoned again as limited manufacturing in the 1990s. But it's always remained surrounded by higher density residential zones. A rezoning of Lot 1 from limited manufacturing to a multi-residence 2 zone would bring it into conformance with the abutting multi-residence 2 district that exists to the north, south, and east, whereas the current limited manufacturing zone is not found anywhere in the area. And finally, a rezoning to a multi-residence 2 district would provide the opportunity to develop a multifamily residential housing in conformance with other residential housing abutting the property to the north and east and south, and supporting the goal of smart growth to increase housing diversity and supply where possible per the city's comprehensive plan. Thoughts on the special permit relief for Lot 1. That the proposed multifamily use is appropriate for the neighborhood, which includes abutting MR2 district with residential 2, 3, and multifamily residences. The proposed multifamily use will not adversely affect the neighborhood or create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, as the project meets the dimensional setbacks of the lot while creating additional low-density housing. The proposed project complies with density restrictions, including lot area per unit as well. And the proposed project is designed adds open space and increases tree and landscape plantings on Lot 1, where previously no trees or green space exists, offering an environmental and aesthetic improvement for the neighborhood. And finally, a small portion of the property does exist within the riverfront area to the Charles River, and it will require a wetlands permit from the Conservation Commission for stormwater. And items to consider for Lot 2. that the proposed non-accessory parking use of 32 stalls is appropriate for the site and neighborhood, and that this use remains the same as the existing and will continue to provide budding businesses with parking. The proposed non-accessory parking use will not adversely affect the neighborhood or create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, as the project will include infrastructure and landscaping improvements to the lot and include parking stalls that meet the standard zoning dimensions of 9 by 19. That the requested relief for landscaping waivers is due to the irregular shape of the lot that precludes adequate spacing for the prescribed interior and perimeter landscaping requirements, and that further discussion is recommended regarding the requested waiver for lighting and a photometric plan to determine if the existing lighting pole that is on the site is sufficient for safety and security purposes. And I believe that concludes the planning presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, I have a point of information.
Thank you, Ms. Berman. Yes, Counselor Block.
The criteria for consideration that the planning department described, do those apply just to the special permit application and/or do they apply to the zoning change request?
Councillor Block, this is Katie Wewell. They only apply to the special permit.
So we are free to consider any criteria, am I correct, regarding the zoning change? Is that correct?
I would defer to Attorney Lee, who is also on the call.
Yes, Mr. Lee.
Councilor Block, I wouldn't say any criteria, but you have to, there's no set criteria to consider for the zoning change. Really what you're looking at is whether or not the zoning change will meet interests of the city and the purposes of the zoning itself. So that's really what you're looking for in terms of whether or not you're going to do the change and whether the change for this particular lot will accomplish some of the zoning goals of the city altogether.
Thank you for that. My way of framing it is whether the zoning change is in the public interest. Is that a fair way to also think about this?
That can be a consideration.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Block. Let's hear from the petitioner now. Somebody to speak for Two Squares LLC. Could you come to the and make sure the microphone is on and yep. So give us your name and address and we'll make sure the microphone is working.
Hi, my name is Bart Bussink, Albert, actually, my formal name, Albert Bussink. I live at 56 Regent Street in Cambridge, Mass. And I'm the managing partner of Two Squares LLC, the owner of the property. We have come a long way, as has the city, in examining this proposal, and we expect that we'll have some distance to go. We are aware that we need to do more community outreach, though I have tried to contact all the direct abutters personally, in various ways, both in person, by phone, and by dropping plans in their mailbox. We are also aware that we'll need a wetland permit and are working on getting that completed. It's in process right now. We feel that this is an appropriate project for the area in the sense that it's a 3-unit building surrounded by other residential uses on 2 sides. It will be attractive from the street, will present a more residential feel to the street. We are not interested in a protracted knockdown legal fight or any other kind of fight necessarily to get this approved. If the city decides that this is not in the best interest of the city, well, that's tough luck for us, and we'll deal with it. We do think it's an attractive design, and we do think it can provide some housing. Yes, there will be some money made if this gets built. But I don't think greed is the primary motivation here. Anyway, we have a variety of people who've worked on this project who have joined us. Katja from Verdant Landscaping, who worked on the landscaping, Alan Cruz from Spruan Engineering, who worked on the site plan. We have Milton Yu, an architect from Peter Quinn Architects, and myself. I don't know if we are also, aware that lighting is an issue, and we're perfectly happy to incorporate some low voltage down lighting in the Lot 2 parking area, if that is deemed to increase the safety. We don't want to create a lot of ambient light for the houses next door, but we understand that there is a safety issue that could be legitimately, proclaimed there. That's it, I think.
Do any of the people you listed on your team have a presentation to show us? It's PowerPoint, something, a visual so we can see?
I believe Milton Yu, I don't see him on your screen.
What's the name?
Milton Yu.
Do you have visuals that you're ready to present to us tonight?
Well, I have a small version.
No, I mean on the screen for the
No, I don't.
for Zoom.
I'm here, Bart. I can present it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, just give us your name and your role on this project.
Sure. Milton Yu,
Can you
representing
spell your last name?
YU,
Thank you.
representing Peter Quinn Architects and Davis Square Somerville for this project. So I'll share my screen.
Okay, thanks. Just so we see what we're looking at in terms of the units, the separation of the parking from the multi-units, how many units?
Sure.
For just some information about that would be very helpful for a presentation like this.
There are 3 units total.
With how many bedrooms, how many square feet, all of that is something that would be helpful for us to know.
Each unit is approximately 1,700
Do you
square.
have the visual now?
There, it starts with a map.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So
Great,
think-
go ahead, sir. If you're going to cover all that, it's great. We'll just wait for you, but let's try and be concise.
sure. So I won't repeat what Sandria covered. I will move right into our site itself. After the A&R was approved by engineering. So first I want to start with the lot, the existing lot. Here, surface parking. Total 24,800 square feet. And the A&R that was proposed is like so. We have the MR2 zone portion of the lot here, roughly 10,700 square feet. And the remaining part of the LMD portion of the lot is still going to be surface parking LMD, roughly 14,000 square feet. So the idea is to have the MR2 portion have 3 units. I'm pulling up the landscape plan. Just to give you an idea where the buildings are situated, 2 in the front along the street and 1 more toward the rear. Each with its patio space. We have an accessible walkway at the front. We also show here the 6 parking spaces, 2 per unit here, tandem for each unit. So in general, just talking about the building on this lot is intended to be dimensionally compliant across the board for this portion. Sandra covered that there are special permits required, a whole host of them, for the existing parking, just because it already was like that. So therefore, essentially those would be carrying over a lot of the existing conditions. But we'll talk about that more in detail later if you like.
Quickly, but later, or whenever you want to. I'd like you to explain to us too, what all those numerous parking spaces are for abutting businesses. How does that fit in with this project? Is does this ownership team own abutting businesses that you want your employer customers to be parking behind this new residential structures?
Well, they are, as I understand, they're not accessory to this project, this building project. But if Bart, you want to talk about who
Yeah,
this is?
the tenants at 26 Farwell Street use this parking lot. And there's a long-term tenant also that rents parking there who will be leaving us, reducing the parking demand substantially by 23 spaces.
So you're going to use what was parking of 23 spaces to build these 3 units?
I'm sorry?
Instead of the 23 parking spaces that will no longer be needed, that's where you're going to be putting these residential units. So it's sort of half residential, half parking.
Yeah, you got it. That's the basic idea. Right now we have 30 spaces available for the tenants across the street, and we will have 32 according to this plan.
Okay, sorry, Mr. You go ahead.
Sure. So just to wrap up, the building itself, we have 3 units, each one ranging from about 1,800 to 1,500 square feet. 2 bedrooms each, 2.5 stories each. The more public spaces on the ground floor, bedrooms above. The elevation is meant to be reminiscent of what we have across the street. This sort of symmetrical design with the gable front. I can show you that real quick, actually. This is our neighbor across the street here. We took some cues from the architecture of this building. Yeah, and in terms of the massing, try to break it up so that it looks, at least from the side, like smaller masses, smaller units. And if you wanted to hear more about the site or the landscaping or the civil design, we have Spruhan Engineering and also Verdant Landscaping here. We can talk to that point.
Thanks. If there are questions, it's good to know they're here to answer. I think that's good for now, and other questions can be generated by the council. Thank you for now. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this project? Just giving it a few seconds to see. I don't see anyone in the chamber. I don't see any hands. I suspect there will be questions from the Land Use Committee and perhaps from Planning and Development Board. Would you guys like to ask any questions first, P&D, or would you like us to ask questions as the council first?
I think if we can ask questions while it goes along, would be fine.
Okay, perfect. Land Use Committee members, any comments or questions? Councillor Leary, then Lucas.
This really inspires me to want to go down and take another live look at this location. I mean, I have been there in the past, not recently, and I can see on Google Maps how diverse it is. A lot of commercial, large parking spaces. It's very mixed. And I just wondering, was there any kind of long-term plans or ideas about development for this area in general, rather than here's just this one idea? And I'm always, in favor of putting more denser housing, particularly in a parking lot, to help, meet our housing needs. But this seems to me like we should be thinking more widely about this. I know that's beyond the purview of land use, but it made me think about that. It strikes me as a little odd to have this like parking all around this residential unit. It just seems out of context to me. So that I was just thinking about longer term plans for this area.
Yeah, I'm not sure we can answer that. Mr. Bussing, does your group own any other parcel or parcels around this, or is this just the only site that's owned for development by your folks?
We own, well, the only other parcel that we own is 26 Farwell, which basically has a building that covers most of the site and would not allow for any further development. So yes, we are limited to just this lot.
But they're going to, 26 is going to benefit from all the parking on this lot.
They do currently, and they will continue to, yeah.
If this is approved.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leary, are you all set? Yes, sir?
I want misrepresentation.
Would you like to speak from the public? Okay, if so, come to the microphone.
Not opposing or
Could you give us your name and address?
favor of the proposal.
Excuse
We
me?
are the abutters of the property.
What's your name, sir?
Paul Malloy, trustee of the P&S Malloy Nominee Realty Trust.
What's the address?
56 Farwell Street.
26. Thank you, sir.
So
Go
we are
ahead.
the immediate butters to the property.
Yes.
Two things. One, we never received a call, a letter, or an attempt to drop off any plans to us of this proposal. That is not to say that we're in favor or opposed to the proposal. Two, keep in mind that there's a right-of-way that separates the proposed parcel and 26 Farwell Street, which is comprised of some metal buildings, a wood building, and an office building, and is now has tenants of Irachi Landscaping and another landscape outfit. So naturally, not myself, but perhaps my heirs might want to do the same thing that this fella here wants to do to the property and build some condo units there. So it's two separate parcels with a right-of-way that's owned by three people. Ourselves, the fellow people that own the condominiums. I think perhaps the engineering outfit that this fellow represents, and another outfit down the way. So there is some issues to be addressed there. And all right, so there's something to be, as one of the counselors brought up, how is it going to change the whole area itself? And it's not that we're opposed to it, but okay, so we'd like to be an active partner in the decision making and its ultimate use of the whole area.
Thank you. Anyone else in the chamber want to speak to this? Let's not have a conversation right now in here, though, about this. I'm not going to I'm not going to do a back and forth. Are you trying to just answer his questions or what?
I'm just saying that we did try to contact both phone numbers we had for Mr. Malloy. That's all.
Okay, well, I think the whole issue of neighbor outreach is something that we're definitely going to get to, and that does need to be done in a more thorough way than you've done so far. There are also written notices that get sent to your abutters. Okay, sir, let's not talk while this is happening, if you don't mind. You could take that outside if you two would like to speak out in the hall. Okay, let's move on to Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. And this is Ward 3, correct? So when ready, I will make a motion to hold, okay? Sir, I'm still confused. What is the current use for the site? It's a parking lot, is it not?
Correct.
And how many cars normally park there?
Right now, there are approximately 45,
There's 45 parking stalls or 45 cars?
52 parking stalls, about 45 are regularly used.
Okay, so it's mostly filled.
Yes,
Okay. If this project is approved, how many parking stalls will remain in lot 2?
32.
So there's fewer parking stalls than there are cars there now. Where are those remaining cars going to go?
As I stated, we have a tenant that rents parking spaces from us, and that will be terminated. They rent 23 spaces from us.
Okay. All right, thank you.
As we are heading towards a hold very clearly, let's just get whatever
Yeah.
questions we can get out. that
Okay.
Help them to come back to us next time with more information that we're asking for.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know if this is relevant, but there's on the site plan, there's a 45-foot right of way. Is that on your property or on your abutter's property?
It's a shared ownership right of way. We own to the middle of it, and 2 other parties own the other side of it.
Okay, and if this is approved, the one, I'm looking at it right here, the one on the right will remain with your abutters, right, correct?
Everybody will retain
Oh.
right to use.
Okay, okay. I would like to see more, not now, because I think we're gonna hold this, more renderings of the proposed housing. What is it gonna look like? We saw 1 or maybe 2 renderings, if you could provide more. I also am a little confused where the parking stalls are gonna be in lot 1, but more importantly, how are people exiting those cars going to access their homes? I understand planning had a question on the lighting. Again, what are you going to propose for lighting in lot 1 and lot 2? I understand you're concerned about light trespassing onto neighboring properties. I get that, but perhaps some ground lights.
That's
so that-
what we're proposing.
Perfect. I mean, right now, there isn't much landscaping on that lot, I understand.
None. Yeah.
None, yeah, well, yeah, I know, I did a site visit the other day. But if you could explain what exactly you're gonna be planting on lot 1 and if necessary, lot 2. Those are my questions for now. And I do highly recommend you try to meet with your neighbors who I see you have some of them in the chamber right now, so. that's
You
all.
want answers to any of that now?
No,
Oh, no, I mean, you can wait till the end, is that?
you're going to need to come back. So what
Yes,
would be helpful is to
we-
just keep track of the questions and comments and be able to address them when you return.
I understand.
Okay,
All set, Chair, thank you.
thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment on Councillor Leary's interest in having a wider evaluation of this property for planning purposes. It seems to me that it is totally within our jurisdiction because this is a zoning change that's in front of us, not just a special permit petition in front of us. So it makes it a very different process for us. It gives us a dual responsibility. Back to the substance of the proposal, for the next presentation, 26, as I understand it, 26 Farwell Street rents 23 parking stalls out of this 52 stall parking area. So we'll need to know how this is going to affect 26 Farwell Street. And if how many parking stalls are available to them now? How many parking stalls will be available to them in the future should this proposal be approved? If there's some shortfall, how is that going to be addressed? That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Are there any other thoughts from any other land use committee members that we'd like to put out there for Mr. Bussing at this time?
Might I speak to that briefly?
Yes.
Sir, there's a tenant that we have that simply rents parking spaces that we will terminate. That will free up the same number of parking spaces that were there initially for the 26 Farwell tenant. And the only other comment I would have to the other gentleman's question is we have tandem parking spaces for the 3 units, 6 spaces total that are accessed via the lot 2. Okay, sorry, excuse me.
No, I think what will be helpful next time is to look at the circulation of all of it. And one of the questions was how they access their units. It's just incomplete right now for us, as I think you actually alluded in your introduction. You think there's more work to be done. We're about to have a motion to, I believe, keep the public hearing open. All in favor of doing that, say aye.
Aye.
On both items. Do we have to do these separately or can we do them together?
Madam Chair,
I just have a question for the clerk and then I'll call back on you.
Attorney Lee, do you have a preference of how they do it?
To hold both items?
Yes.
Can
You
they
can
take
do-
one
You
vote?
can you can do it together in one vote.
Good. We just did, I think. Otherwise, we'd go back and do them again separately.
Madam Chair, just really briefly for the next presentation, it isn't enough for me. I don't know about the rest of the committee to know that 23 stalls are currently rented and they will no longer be rented. The petitioner has said that 45 out of the 52 stalls are regularly used. Is that changing? Is the demand going down? What's happening with those 45? That for the future, not tonight. Thank you.
I do think he already touched on that, but again, we would like a more comprehensive approach to this next time. And is there another motion, Councillor Lucas, that you would like to make? That was about keeping the public hearing open and a motion to hold. Mr. Lee, Andrew Lee, can we hold both items on one vote?
And you're talking about the different docket items, 307-06-25
25.
and 307-25, correct,
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes, that is
I'd
my
say
question.
for the sake of clarity, perhaps do it in 2 separate votes for the 2 separate docket items.
Okay, so both are keeping the public hearing open. That's been done. We will take 2 separate docket items for holding the 2 different issues. The first one is the 306-25, which is the rezoning request. I'm just asking the city councilors. P&D can take their own vote on this. If you're in favor, let's do a roll call just to be safe.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovett,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
and President Laredo is recused.
Ah.
7-0 with 1 recusal. Motion holds.
We're still doing the second part of this, President Laredo. In 1 second, if you want to come back out into the Hall of Exile. Welcome, Councillor Downs, by the way. If I forgot to say that, she's joined us on Zoom and she just voted. The second motion to hold is on number 307-2, which is the special permit portion of this. We'll take a roll call vote on holding.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell, Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovett,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo is recused 7-0 and 1. Motions hold.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. President Laredo, you can come back. Our next item is number 3.
Chair? Here, Madam Chair.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Heath.
Yeah, just would, on behalf of the planning board, I want to move to hold item 30625 to the next regularly scheduled planning board meeting on November 3rd.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Heath. I was looking at Kevin McCormick for that, and I forgot that he said you were going to make that motion. Okay, it's held all around. Now, the next item is 304-25, a request to allow ground floor residential use 4 stories to exceed height and associated parking waivers at 1100-1102 Beacon Street. Again, we'll hear first from planning. Thank you, Planning and Development Board. See you November 3rd.
Okay, Madam Chair, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one last time. And as long as you can see my screen, I'm going to move this. I apologize. Just tinkering over here. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, Sandria Berman, Senior Planner for the City of Newton, and this is petition 304-25, a special permit site plan approval to construct a 4-unit residential dwelling. And this is again 1100 to 1102 Beacon Street. You'll notice here that it's right in the Four Corners neighborhood. The subject property is located in a Business 2 district, right adjacent to the Four Corners intersection. The property is currently improved with a 2-story commercial building that was constructed in 1945. From the street, however, this building does appear as a single-story commercial building, but due to the topography of the lot, it slopes downward in the back, exposing a full story below. The surrounding neighborhood includes a BU 1 and 2 districts, as well as multi-residence 1 and 3 districts. And properties in these districts are variable in height and size and consist of mixed residential and commercial uses. Direct abutting properties consist of 2- and 3-story businesses and residential uses, including multi-unit condominiums to the north and west, and commercial uses to the north, east, and west. And for folks familiar with this area, you'll notice that the Whole Foods is sort of southeast, and then the Walgreens is to the north. Oops, I'm going to go back. I apologize. I skipped ahead. For zoning relief here, the petition is seeking relief for residential use at the ground floor and above, dimensional relief pertaining to the height and number of stories, and a waiver for the number of parking stalls required within a BU district. And some criteria to consider: that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed 4-unit building as designed, that the proposed 4-unit building as developed and operated will not adversely affect the neighborhood, that there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, that access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and finally, that literal compliance with the parking requirements in the ordinance is impracticable due to the nature of the use or the location, size, width, depth, shape, or grade of the lot, or that such exceptions would be in the public interest or in the interest of safety or the environment. Some items to consider from planning is that the proposed use is appropriate for the site and neighborhood, which does include a variety of districts, building sizes, and uses within the Four Corners neighborhood. The proposed 4-unit residential use will not adversely affect the neighborhood or create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, as the project meets the dimensional setbacks of the lot while creating additional housing that is close to public transit and other amenities. The proposed project complies with lot area per unit, 1,333 square feet per unit, where 1,200 is the minimum. The site plan notes that pervious materials are proposed for the driveway and walkways. The requested relief to allow 3 stories and up to 36 feet in height will be in conformance with abutting properties. And finally, that the Four Corners location provides nearby access to public transportation amenities, multimodal transportation infrastructure, making it a preferred location for multi-unit residential development per the city's comprehensive plan. That concludes the planning presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much again, Ms. Berman. Anybody here from One Stop LLC? Not in the chamber? Anyone online on Zoom? There we go. Ernie Feltiera?
Good evening. My name is Ernie Fatera. I'm joined today by John Downey. He's the architect, John Callahan, construction consultant, and Joe Porter, civil engineer. We're going to go over a 3-story building, multi-family, that's in a area that also has multifamily. The building will, we feel, be very desirable, improve the area. The one stop is a little bit of an eyesore. And we're also removing the parking from the front, taking it to the rear. The MBTA is about 7/10 of a mile away. But having said that, I'm going to cut it short here and turn it over to the John Downey to walk us through the plan.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Downey.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah, it's a little off center, but we can see it.
Okay.
Do you want to start with a site plan?
Sure, I can do that. This is the first floor plan and the site plan are virtually the same thing. It's a 5,331 square foot site. Has an existing 2-story building that presents as a 1-story building on the front that we've gone through the Historic Commission and gotten them to agree to allow demolition of that building. And we did initially, when we looked at this project, we looked at renovating that building and adding to it, but it required some variances that we were not likely to get. Also, it would only work with the parking at the front of the building using the existing curb cut, which is about 30 feet wide. And none of us liked that, and the neighbors certainly didn't. So we went back and looked at changing it to a 4-unit, 3-story building for townhouses. So there are 4 individual townhouses. Beacon Street is on this side, on the right side of the plan. And then the access will be for a 15-foot wide driveway. And then each unit has a carport. And then it's a 3-story building. So this is the second floor with the public spaces, kitchen, dining, living room. And then on the 3rd floor, 2 more bedrooms and a bathroom. And then at the very top of this is a roof deck for each unit. And then these are the elevations. The one on the right is the elevation from Beacon Street. And then the one on the left is the rear elevation that faces the interior neighborhood. And then these are the side elevations. This is on the west side. As you can see, each of the units steps down a little bit as the site steps down. And then on the east side, facing the gas station, is this elevation. And again, you can see that they step down. So as mentioned before, the relief that we need is for all residential, 3-story building, which is done through the special permit process, and the 36-foot height, which is tied to the 3 stories, and then having parking relief for just the 4 spaces. And as I mentioned before, the Historic Commission has already approved the demolition. Just for your information, the unit sizes, the first 3 units going from Beacon Street inward, units A, B, and C are about 1,490 square feet each. And the last unit has a little bit of an extra piece on the back side, and that unit is 1,750 square feet. And this is the landscape plan that we have. It's a proposed driveway. We have a little bit of a landscape at the front, and then lawn at the back with 1 tree. It's a very small site. And then these are the renderings. The one on the top is looking at it from across the street with the gas station to the left, and the second elevation, or the second rendering, shows the walkway where the entrances are and the small decks that face west.
On
And
that
that's
rendering, where are the cars parked on those renderings?
you can barely see that there's the carports are entered from the driveway here and on the side. If I go back to the elevation for that side, these are the carports, and those windows are recessed about 12 feet, I think, from the face of the building going back.
So the cars park in front of the first floor windows.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just couldn't quite see where the cars were in that.
Right, I understand. No, that's really about it. Happy to take questions.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this project? No? Okay, we'll take it into the committee. Committee members. President Laredo.
Just a few questions. You had a picture up there with a very nice looking tree in it. You want to bring that back up?
Picture? Oh,
Your rendering.
The singular tree.
Does
Okay.
that tree exist anywhere on this site?
this tree here,
Yeah.
as far as I know, that's from the photograph.
Yes, it does exist. It's on the neighbor's property.
Is that tree there?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
if
everything
this-
except the actual proposed building is actual property.
So you've superimposed on this picture the building and everything else is as is?
Yes, correct.
Okay. For planning, if this was a zone not BU, but residential, would this building be allowed?
I would,
Go ahead. I think we would need to do a little bit more analysis on that. I think for making sure it would meet the definition of single family attached, and all of the standards that come with that. As you know, they're quite rigorous, but can be waived by special permit. So, the lot size is relatively small, I believe between 6,000 and 7,000 square feet. So that would require a waiver, and likely the project as presented would require many waivers for a single family attached dwelling in a multi-residence zone. But there are other residential zones we
No, I
could also
understand.
look into.
I understand they're in a B2 zone. Are the adjacent properties commercial or residential?
Jason, excuse me, sorry, President Laredo, this is Andrea Berman. The adjacent area has business unit 1 and 2 zones, or excuse me, and multi-residence 1 and 3 surrounding the area.
All right.
So there's residential and commercial, to answer your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. Councilor Block?
So along the same lines, the mobile gas station, is that to the left?
Correct.
Of that tree that we're looking at?
Correct. That tree is on the mobile gas station's property.
And on the other side of this, what's on the other side of this?
It is a commercial building that houses nail salon and some other small businesses. And then immediately to the right of that is a condo building that was previously commercial and now is condos.
Okay, so
some call it the castle building.
Okay, I know what you're referring to. Thank you. So questions for planning, is this location viable for commercial activity?
I don't think we have an answer for that tonight. It is within a business zone. However, what you're seeing is residential. So I think, we look at, or this committee looks at things parcel by parcel. I'm not sure if anyone else from planning can weigh in on that question, but that would likely require further analysis.
As you know, there's been lots of discussions about the adequacy of commercial activity in Newton. And it would be nice to have that analysis from the planning department regarding whether this has a viable commercial possibility. Our review as a committee would be influenced by that, because if you said, no, there is no possibility of commercial activity at this site, we'll look upon this proposal one way. And if you said, no, it is possible that there would be commercial activity at this site, we may look on it another way. So it would be really helpful to have that analysis. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Councillor Lucas, followed by Councillor Labovitz, followed by Councillor Leary. I thought so.
Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze. Mr. Fitiera.
Yes.
You are the principal of, is it One Stop LLC? Is that right?
I'll be the developer on it, and I'm not. I could respond to the previous comment, but I didn't want to speak out of turn. I'm happy to jump in whenever we have the opportunity to.
What? Oh, I'll let.
While you're speaking, you have an opportunity to answer questions that you've heard.
Okay, can I respond to the previous comment?
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So the One Stop has been sitting there for about 5 years, vacant. It's been marketed for sale and for lease during that period. No takers have come along that make any sense. So I think my thought here is that there's a low probability that at some point this property can be used for commercial purposes. But we feel that the best use for it is this proposal. In addition to that, I guess the castle building, which was a larger piece of property, has also been converted to residential. And given that we're 7/10 of a mile, it would help support the housing needs and for people that are looking to take the train into work.
Councillor Lucas, did you have other questions?
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah. So just again, are you the principal or for One Stop LLC?
No, I am the developer. I'm going to be the owner for the property.
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
a representative.
Yep. Have you ever developed homes in Newton before?
This will be my first home in Newton, but I have developed in the Metro West, including multifamily.
Okay, thanks. So I like the design of the building. I like how you have the those roof decks. I like how the roofs are sort of slanted and they're not. It's not a flat roof. Basically, is what I'm getting at. I like the design. My issue with this, and I think Councilor Block was getting to it, is me personally. I would like to see mixed use here. Commercial on the ground floor and housing above. You know, you're next to a gas station, you're next to, you know, Walgreens and Whole Foods. There are other commercial operations that are happening in this Four Corners neighborhood of Newton. Me personally, I would like to see mixed use. So that's where I'm at right now. And some of the relief that you are seeking is residential on the ground floor. I would like to see commercial on the ground floor, and then put housing above. This is not related to you, but we had a petition last night that we were discussing, and I brought up this concern. So as of right now, I would like to see commercial on the ground floor. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Let me just follow up a tiny bit on something you were asking Mr. Fier about being a principal. John Callahan, what is your role in this project? I believe you and I have spoken about this site in the past. What's your participation in this particular proposal?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm the construction manager and consultant for Ernie Fidiera and Woodland Peak Development. But I was involved in the project from the beginning back in 2020. So I'm a Newton, lifelong Newton resident, and my friends and neighbors, family owned One Stop. And they asked me to, you know, help them look at some proposals on what they may be able to do with the property after they retired from the dry cleaning business. So I looked at with John Downey, the architect, different options, including mixed use with retail on the ground level and residential above. And I wasn't able to make it pencil out. So we reached out to Ernie, you know, an experienced developer, you know, with these types of projects. And, you know, he came up with this idea and design that we think works for the town, for the city, and, you know, for the developer.
Okay, thank you. So you've been at this site for a long time.
Yes.
I remembered that and you know it well. Okay, let's move on. Councillor Lobovitz is next, and this is in his ward.
It's not, I'm sorry?
And I was just saying, and it's in your ward.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm still a little confused about the mixed use that Councilor Lucas was referring to. Is that, so one of the waivers or exceptions has to be allowing residential use on the first floor. Is that correct? One of the things we're
Yes.
being asked to do. Okay. I share Councilor Lucas's perspective on this. He mentioned the other property we considered last night, and I struggled with that one in terms of whether we should require commercial use on the first floor of that. Obviously, I came down on the decision that we shouldn't. But this property is different. It's not right in the residential area. It's actually, as was pointed out, in the middle of other commercial uses on either side, across the street, et cetera. And so I'm going to, as I said, agree with Councilor Lucas on this issue and would prefer commercial use on the first floor. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll probably come back to you soon for a motion. Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on the comment of the larger picture of this area, I do think it's something that the city council has been struggling with, and referring to our discussion last night. And this is a 5,330 square foot site. It seems pretty tight, and that there's parking behind it. Is that correct? Or will that be used? Will that include the building itself? Or it looks like it's parking for the nail salon and the Pilates studio as well. Is that correct?
The other property,
The
not
other-
included. Yeah, the parking in the rear is not included.
How many parking spaces are back there?
Our property will have 4 parking spaces.
Just
I know
for
it.
the residential units, that what you're talking about is not part of this project, I believe.
Okay, we just wanted to, that's what I'm asking. The parking behind it is not part of the project at all. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct. Separate property, separate owner.
Mr. Fiera, I think at first you said that the parking was to the rear, and that might be part of the confusion now perhaps about the parking to the rear that Councilor Leary's talking about, because it really looks to me that the parking is on the side, not the rear.
Oh, yeah, I pardon. What I was meant to say, or didn't come across the way I was intending to say, is that the existing building has parking in the front. We had considered some options that had parking in the front. With this latest design, we're able to take the parking to the side, add green space and landscaping in the front. We met with neighbors, and that was one of their concerns. And we're able to accommodate that by bringing the green space to the front instead. So moving the parking to the side.
Okay. I know there's going to be there's a condo on one side of it, and also a condo, a larger condo unit right across the street from here as well. And
Correct.
And the building itself, it has kind of a blank look from the street. Is there, I can't tell from the rendering, is there any entrance in the front? Is there a door there?
Ernie, can I answer that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, the entrances to each of the individual units is on the west side.
Yes,
So
I
on
see
this side. So you would walk down the path between the fence and the building to get to the individual entrances.
So the front is just a blank wall that.
Well, it has windows and it has these screens. So there's a screen behind the trees that separates the first carport from the street, as well as the first entry from the street.
Okay.
I'd also like to point out at a 5,000, we did look at a commercial, a mixed use project, and you have to put the parking at the front because you can't really access it from the side because the site is too small. So the existing one-stop shopping or one-stop cleaners had 4 parking spaces across the front, and that's all they could get. And their building front was set back about 30 feet. So that's about halfway down the site. So once you've taken up the parking in the front, 4, maybe 5 spaces at the front, then you have almost nothing left over for the development of residential above or commercial above. It just doesn't work. The site is just too small.
Mr. Downey, I don't think anyone on this committee would be recommending we put the parking in the front. And we
Well,
understand.
that's exactly why we changed from what we were looking at when we were looking at renovating the building and using the existing building. So,
Which
no,
included
we
also
agree.
concepts that had commercial on the first floor, and it wasn't penciling out. It was really difficult to make work, and part of the reason why people have looked at it over the last 5 years no one's been able to figure out a scheme or to make it work.
Yep, you've said that. I think that's clear to us all. Counselor Weary, are you still have the floor?
Yeah, but at this point, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Does anyone on the committee have any more? Counselor Farrell?
Thank you, Chair. This is a bit of an unformed thought, but did the property that existed, the business that existed, did you buy a functioning business or did you buy an empty building?
The building was already non-operational when I got involved.
The dry cleaning business.
The dry business, yeah, yes, correct.
I guess I'm getting concerned a little bit about this committee insisting or considering encouraging strongly commercial uses on small properties like this. When we look around, unfortunately, in many of the village centers and so forth, there's so many vacant commercial spots. And I think it would be worthwhile having a conversation about what's going on with small businesses in these areas. Why was this business not working? Was it the type of business it is? I think at one point there was a piece of a nail salon in here, which, with all due respect, I don't think we need another nail salon around. So, but here's an opportunity to create some residential space in a small property that in and of itself, I have a couple of questions about, but I'm concerned about the continuing emphasis to insist on commercial spaces in small properties like this. When we look around and really don't understand why commercial business is having so much trouble in this area and in all of the other neighborhoods. About the building itself, I'm concerned about the frontage to Beacon Street. I don't think it's a particularly inspiring front for the passersby on Beacon Street. I would love to see Beacon Street being much more interesting architecturally. This is, as I think one kind of my colleague mentioned, kind of a flat and uninspiring. I would love to see something different that way, but I'm not opposed to the residential piece. I'm concerned about the insistence about commercial uses in small spaces like this. And I would love to see something much more attractive and inspiring, with all due respect to the architect, something more attractive on Beacon Street as we go by it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Farrell. I see two more hands up and I'd like to move things along so we can wrap up where we stand on this project. Counselor Downs, you're next. Counselor Downs? It's coming.
Hi, for some reason I couldn't unmute. Here we are. I agree with my colleague from Ward 8 on this. We've tried to force commercial in on ground floor uses in Ward 3 in the past and had them sit empty year over year. And I don't want to see that happen here. I actually think this is a good place for this housing to go. I do agree about the facade on Beacon Street. I'd like to see that give a little bit more back to the street. But I otherwise think this is a fairly good design. Not sure. I mean, I'm sure people are desperate enough to live in Newton that they would take a dual view of a nail salon in another building on one side and a gas station on the other, and still consider themselves lucky to get in. Are these rentals or are these going to be purchased?
They're going to be for purchase, ma'am, and
okay,
it's a matter of time. That other building between this one and the castle, it's a matter of time before that's also converted to something else, which likely is
Right.
residential. And lastly, there is a strip mall down the street. that has a lot more parking and there are vacant units
Right.
there. So, we're just gonna add more vacant commercial space here is
Well,
my,
I agree with you on that one, and that's not my point. My point is
Yeah.
more what kind of a view you get out of these units. I think we had to think about that a little bit. And I agree with you. I think that nail salon is also going to go under the hammer and become something different. I've always hoped that strip mall would become something better, but this will be adding customers for all of those strip mall uses nearby, and they'll be able to walk there. So I'm generally in support, but I would love to have some thought about what these residents are going to be looking at, as well as what those of us walking along Beacon Street will be looking at. And other than that, that does it for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. I think we've heard that Beacon Street facing facade comment from quite a few of us. We still have two hands up, and then we're going to try and wrap it up. We're coming back to Councillor Lobovitz now, and then Councillor Malachy.
Just wondered if there was any consideration of elevators in the building.
Ernie, you're muted.
Sorry, I had you muted because I wanted to stop the back and forth conversations we were having. But in this case, you've been asked a question, so you're back on.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we've considered that. We're going to offer it as a upgrade. I've installed elevators in buildings previously and think it's a good idea. If someone wants it, we'll add it.
So optional elevator ready.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think we'll come back to you again in a minute for some kind of a motion if you're thinking about it. Councillor Malachy, do you have some quick words? Because there's not much tree work here.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. It sounded like the overhang for the cars was, I thought I heard 12 feet. Does that mean the rear of the cars is going to be sticking out of from under the building?
I will roll back up to the plan so you can see how they lay out.
Yes.
So the facade of the building from the space.
Okay, that seems a little odd. But my bigger question, I guess, was people who live here have visitors. Where are the visitors going to park? And if there are deliveries, where do the deliveries happen?
The guest parking, there are side streets around the neighborhood where there is street parking. And it's entirely possible that some of the people who have these units may not have a car because of the good public transportation in the area.
3/4 of a mile away. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
For the delivery question?
Oh, the deliveries would probably be taken on the, this is the entry walk for each of the units. So each unit has a small porch and then the entry. So any deliveries would be taken down this walkway and delivered to the individual units.
So I mean, the vehicle would live park on Beacon Street or what? I thought that was a bike lane.
I don't know that there is a bike lane. There's an existing sidewalk. And then the next business over, the nail salon, is here.
So they would park in the other business's parking lot?
No, they would probably park somewhere along Beacon. I'm not sure if they can park here.
They cannot park
Or
on Beacon.
in the
It's a bike
driveway.
lane.
Nowhere on Beacon? Then they
No,
have to
Beacon,
park on
Beacon
Side
is a
Street.
bike lane.
Okay.
Might be good to figure that out.
Yeah, and perhaps where the trash is located and where that gets picked up to is something you guys can tell us about another time. Unless you have that answer right now too.
Well, we've talked about it. There's a spot here at the end of this walkway between the carport and the entry, the rear entry to the unit. So there's enough space here for two Newton bins.
Do you have dimensions for this driveway? For instance, can we tell how wide that entry driveway is in terms of space for pulling into the stalls and pulling out to back up to get out? It doesn't look like it's recommended width. What are the dimensions of this driveway? I do see that it seems to open up as it goes back, but perhaps at the beginning and the end, you could, when you come back to us, show us how wide this is. And I don't know if those lines really reflect what a turning radius would be.
The width of the driveway is 15 feet.
The width
And
of
then
the curb cut is 15 feet, correct?
The width of the curb cut is 15 feet. That's correct. And so the actual driveway would be a little bit wider than that. And these, we've worked with our civil engineer on the turning radiuses, and they are correct.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from the committee?
Just one more question.
Sorry, Councilor Malachi, go ahead.
Would DPW be emptying these bins, or would they be handled a different way? Or, Waste Management, or, our contractor? If you put,
I don't think we have an answer for that right now.
okay, thank you.
I think if they're private condominiums, I think you're going to have a private trash, but that's just an unofficial.
likely.
thought. But that's another
Yeah.
thing to be thinking through here. And also snow plowing, where does the snow get stored? Site issues like that are things that are questions that are come up from us.
The snow was planned to be removed or pushed to the rear of the property. There's space there, and then private trash as well.
The snow would go where the tree is.
In the back,
The one tree is right where you're
Back-
talking
back
about the
left.
snow going. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll work that out a little bit later because,
and
Things
hauled
like-
off.
yes, perfect. Thank you. Counselor Lobovitz.
Move to keep the public hearing open and to hold this item. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of keeping the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nobody was opposed. I don't think to that. I didn't hear one opposed. And and let's take a vote on keeping the public hearing open to hold this item. Roll call, please.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs.
Aye.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo. Motion is held. 8-0.
8-0. Thank you. All right, the last of our smaller ones, number 305-25, a request to exceed FAR at 136 Gordon Road. I see the petitioner is already at the microphone. Go ahead, Mr. Lee.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Lawrence Lee with Rosenberg, Friedman, and Lee on behalf of the petitioner, Michael and Emily Canestraro, who are here with me tonight, as well as Kent Duckham, the architect. As part of the petition tonight, I would like to ask Michael and Emily to come up to just give a brief background of how we got here tonight. Thank you.
Absolutely, sure. Come on up.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good evening, Chair Kelly and members of the committee. As Lawrence said, my name is Michael Canestraro, and I'm here with my wife, Emily. We are the homeowners for this project at 136 Gordon Road. We currently reside at a rental house at 37 Champa Street in Newton Upper Falls, and we are both born and raised in the city of Newton. In fact, Emily grew up on the street where we're hoping to build our future home, just 2 doors down from this property. And her parents, Linda and Ken Pollovy, still live there today. Our goal is simple. We want to raise our family here in the community we grew up in and love. The situation we're in really comes down to timing and some unfortunate circumstances. We designed our house in 2024 and selected this particular property because of its proximity to family and because it allowed us to build the home we envisioned within the zoning rules at that time. We purchased the property in June of 2024 and immediately filed for the historical review and began designing our new home with Kent, our architect. And we began submitting for permits in the fall of 2024 through November and December. And in a devastating turn of events, a key member of our project team suffered an unforeseen and severe medical and personal event that delayed the full submission of our completed materials by the end of 2024. Meanwhile, we didn't realize that there was a code change that implemented on January 1st of 2025 that affected our project. By the time we submitted the remaining materials in early January, the new rules had taken effect, and that's what brings us here tonight. The house we designed would have been a completely by right project in 2024. We haven't changed anything, and we're not asking for anything excessive or out of character for the neighborhood. We just got caught in the transition between the old code and the new code. And when we found out about this issue, we brought Attorney Lee on board to help us navigate the special permit process, and we immediately reached out to all of our neighbors to review the project with them. We've received a lot of support from the surrounding neighbors, and we understand that some may have even sent letters of support on our behalf to the committee, and we really appreciate their understanding and encouragement. So we're asking tonight for the committee's help to treat this project as the 2024 project that it truly is. We're proud to be Newton residents. We're not builders or developers, and we simply want to move forward with building our family's home. And thank you for your time and consideration, and I'll turn it back over to Lawrence.
Thank you.
Thank you. So very briefly, what I'm going to do is just take you through the slides to run through the project. As you can see on the screen, so some site information. We are in an SR2 zoning district with over 12,000 square feet of land. All of the setbacks comply with zoning. It's actually an old lot. We comply with new lot setbacks. It's a 2.5-story building, and it's under our height requirements. Lot coverage and open space are well under the required. Lot coverage is well under the required minimum, and open space is well above the minimum requirements. One thing to note is that I believe the planning memo indicated a 0.36 is allowed, where it actually is with a bonus that's added in, it's a 0.38 that's allowed. So as Michael just alluded to, it was the average grade that changed on January 1st or came into effect on January 1st, 2025 that got caught in that transition. Here's a zoning map of the site. We are surrounded by single-family homes. Here's a rendering of what the house will look like. Site plan that shows that there is a grade difference between the front and the back. What we are looking to do will be leveling the backyard. There will be a proposed retaining wall along the perimeter, the back perimeter, the side, and the rear perimeter of that as part of the proposal. This is just an existing condition site plan showing the topography, which is slightly a slope from front to back. Landscape plan that shows the proposed trees and shrubbery and screening around the property. As Michael had mentioned, we have been very much involved in getting the neighbors, getting feedback and notifying them of the project. Just some examples of plantings and then elevations. These are all in your packet. I can come back to any one of these, but this is really a by right project effective of the 2024 rules. I can come back to any of these if you like, but I understand that this may be a long night, so I'm just going to quickly go through these slides for you and then back to the rendering. I will stop share now and take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Let's see if there are any members of the public who would like to speak or make questions or comments on this. Oh, yes. Let's hear from planning. Yes. Sorry, don't mean to forget you. Is
Okay,
that-
thank you. Madam Chair, would you like me to proceed with a presentation
Yes,
or?
please. Thank you. You see how
Okay.
quickly we're trying to get through the night. Yes, please, Ms. Wewell. I'm sorry. Please
Okay.
do. And then we'll ask again for members of the public.
Okay, so this is petition 305-25 for 136 Gordon Road. This property is located between Newton Center and Woburn, largely within kind of a block of single residence 2 zoning districts surrounded by single family residences. Further to the east along Beacon, oh, let me just make this full screen. Further to the east along Beacon Street are Cold Spring Park as well as the Newton Cemetery. Those are both located in public use zones. The petitioner is requesting zoning relief to exceed FAR by raising the existing dwelling and constructing a new dwelling. When reviewing this request, the council should consider the 4 standard special permit criteria as well as the specific FAR criteria that questions whether the exceedance of FAR is the maximum allowed as of above the max allowed is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures. As noted in the planning memo, the proposed FAR of 0.46 is a notable increase from the max 0.36. Attorney Lawrence Lee was correct. With new lot setbacks, that number gets slightly bumped up to 0.38. This proposed FAR is approximately 1,200 square feet above the allowed FAR. Just want to note that 952 square feet of that FAR is within the basement level. Planning also noted the neighborhood consists of a variety of style and size of single-family homes at varying heights. The height of the existing dwelling was not provided. However, the proposed dwelling will measure 35.95 feet tall, where 36 feet is the maximum allowed, and it also contains a larger footprint than the existing dwelling. So certainly something to consider. And the project does meet all other zoning requirements. Another thing in the planning memo is the retaining walls proposed around the rear yard. Planning noted that the top of wall measurements reach in varying elevations within the 116-foot range. However, the rear yard continues to slope upwards to 118-foot elevation, where 113-foot elevation exists. So this means the after construction, the proposed rear yard will be about 5 feet higher than the existing conditions due to the retaining wall and that additional upward slope of the yard. So that concludes the planning presentation. We're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I did see a hand up for a comment from the public. Ken Polivy. Can you unmute? Thanks. You will be unmuted soon.
Okay.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Emily and father and Michael's father-in-law. We have lived here for 45 years. There is another one of Emily's cohorts who grew up on the street and is in their parents' house as well. So we're unfortunately would have liked to have gotten started earlier, but we're excited that and hopeful that they'll have the opportunity to get going so that they can move out of the rental and be back on the street where they want to be. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public like to speak? No. Now we'll take it into the committee. President Laredo.
Attorney Lee, I'm very sympathetic to your client's situation, but I want to understand exactly what would have been allowed by right pre-January 1 and what's changed? If you could just lay that out for us, please.
The house is by right as of 2024 in terms of what you see as presented. The mathematical formula changed on January 1st. So as Katie Wewell pointed out, 0.38 FAR would have been allowed with a new setbacks, which is where we are, and that's what was proposed. Most, if not all of that square footage that's previously did not count is in the basement, which now counts because of the change of the definition.
So, Ms. Wewell, presumably we made a policy decision, if I remember correctly, that took effect on January 1st. Was the policy decision, though, designed to get at this type of house?
Councilor Laredo, I wasn't involved in the zoning and planning conversations. However, they largely impacted height. I didn't see any of the prior plans that calculated the average grade. We only take what falls under the ordinance at the time of application, but I don't know if Ms. Kyra has anything to add.
Yes, she has her microphone ready, Ms. Kyra.
Okay, so.
Do you want her to answer your question?
Oh, sure, Ms. Kyra, thank you.
Thank you. So I was involved in the zoning and planning discussions around this. So the policy intent was to get at the grading that was happening, significant grading that was happening for new homes in order to not count the basement towards floor area or as a story, which ultimately were making homes seem larger and taller than the zoning would otherwise allow. So the ordinance change requires that height be measured from the existing grade rather than the proposed grade, which then for projects like this can trigger more or all of the basement counting towards the floor area.
Got it. I mean, I remember, just for my colleagues' edification, seeing a project fairly recently where someone had put in all sorts of fill, then built right on top of it. It absolutely towered over the neighbors, and I think that was quite a wise policy decision, but I don't see that. Frankly, I don't see why that applies here. These folks relied on what we had in place. We've got lots of support, no concerns from anybody living nearby. I'm perfectly fine with this, and I hope we vote it out quickly.
Thank you, President Laredo. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councilor Laredo kind of stole my questions. I think the project in question was in Newton Center on Rayland. There was in that case, there was an aggressive retaining wall, let's just say. Just a question on the math. I just want to make sure we're talking apples to apples. Ms. Wewell said that if this was by right underneath the old regs, you would have been okay, but because we're using the new regulations, you're about 1,200 square feet over in FAR, right?
It's really about, it's under 1,000 actually with a 0.02 bonus.
It's 1,200 if you're using the 0.36 FAR, but you're using the 0.38 because it's an old lot.
And we're meeting new lot setbacks.
So old lot with the new lot setbacks, you get the bonus.
That's correct.
Okay. So that's that 900 and change square foot basement. And that's the basement is the reason why we're here tonight. And you're here tonight again. Yeah, this is all set. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. Anyone else have anything? I just have a question about the adding 5 feet of fill to the backyard. That is something we often look at when the grade changes that much, and I understand it's in order to get a level yard. And I assume there's going to be some kind of a drainage system to take care of all that.
That's correct.
Okay. Councilor Leary.
I'd like the committee to be consistent, and we had a house with a much higher FAR, and that was the only relief that they needed. that we held, essentially told them to come back. And I think that this change was made for a good reason. And we got a lot of complaints about issues of the grade changes, the overly large homes. And, you know, that's something that I think was an important policy, and I really agree with it. And I imagine that most of my colleagues here also agree with that change. We did it for a reason. You know, the grade changes and the fill are also concerned. So, I mean, I'm just a little stuck on this because I like to stick to my principles on this. I'm sympathetic to what's going on, but those are just my comments for this evening.
Thank you. Counselor Downs?
My comments are kind of similar. The 5-foot grade change in the back. I want to get a better understanding of that because I think that's one, why the policy changed, but also two, this is an area where we've been told by neighbors there is flooding and groundwater flooding, and we know our groundwater levels are going up, and we know we can get you know, you're sort of adjacent to Cold Spring Park, and it's low lying there. You're not going to be ending up changing things so that you know, I know you have stormwater controls on site, but you know, but sometimes by just putting that fill in, you're pushing your water table up. So I'd like to get a better understanding of that.
Is that a question, specific question that you would like somebody to answer, or are you just expressing a concern over that?
A little concerned about the 5 feet of fill and the effect that'll have on the house behind it. I wonder if we could get an elevation of how that would look from the house behind it. And I understand the neighbors haven't complained and are generally supportive. But I'm also a little bit worried about the water.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, do you have a response to that?
That was one of the main issues that I've raised with my folks, knowing the history and the policies of the change in the ordinance. They have communicated with their neighbors, with their engineer on this very, very issue, to make sure that this is not a problem with our neighbors, as well as in compliance with the stormwater drainage. And I think I would like to take a quick moment to address Councilor Leary's concern upon policy. One of the things I do want to point out is the height that is proposed is from the original grade without changes, and we comply with that. So I think that was another reason as part of the policy change.
Thank you. Are you all set, Councilor Downs?
I am. I believe this is my ward.
Yes.
Shall I move to close the public hearing?
We'll do that after in a moment. We've got one more hand up. Councilor Maliki?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure out how the tree plan relates to the change in grade and how close the 5 feet increase in grade is going to come to either existing trees, which on this lot, which were intended to be kept, and also how close to the certainly the rear abutters trees or any abutters trees that are supposed to be protected. And I'm not seeing like the kind of a diagram that shows the, you know, the radiuses to be protected, and it's not clear how I see on the I guess it's the sort of the landscape plan, it looks like the grade goes from 117 to 118, somewhere very close to the property line. Is that the 5 feet increase we're talking about?
Well, that would be only 1 foot. There's a total of 5 feet increase in the backyard. Mr. Lee?
So dialing the clock back about a year, this is where we were with a tree permit, and my folks were in the middle of that and obtained a tree permit with Mark Welch. So what we're seeing is something that is already gone through his review. And certainly we will If there's anything that we need to revisit with Mark, we will certainly do so as part of the process.
Yeah, because I mean, the tree ordinance revision was certainly in place a year ago. And did the plans that he reviewed include the grade changes?
That is correct.
Did we see a landscape plan that showed existing trees on the site to be retained? Do we have that? Is there a landscape plan that shows existing and proposed trees?
I am going to show my screen.
Okay, thanks. Because clearly you can't add 5 feet of fill to an existing planter area. It would suffocate the tree. So of those trees in the backyard, which are existing and which are proposed? Could you like to come up and use a pointer or a?
I think
Cursor or
this
something?
other plan actually shows where the existing trees are. And then the landscape plan on the next slide shows the proposed plantings. I can just toggle back and forth.
So there are some existing trees.
Mr. Canestraro would like to add to this.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, there were a handful of trees in the backyard that we proposed to remove and replace with other trees. And we've taken into account all of the diameters and everything's been approved with the tree protection plan and the tree permit. That's all been addressed.
Okay, so you're not keeping the trees, you're removing them and replacing them with new trees.
That's correct. The ones that are directly impacted by that grade change, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Maliki, is that okay?
Well, for example, tree 3A on the neighbors, 11 inch linden, that it's tree 3A on your diagram there. That looks pretty close to the property line. How far or how close would grade changes be to that tree? This is not affecting the special permit, but it's just because I don't think it directly affects it, but it's something that affects your kind of final compliance, I think, with the tree permit.
Well, I think the trees have already been addressed with Mark Welch, and certain trees have already been removed as part of the 2024 process prior to them running into this issue. So the concerns that you have raised have already been dealt with Mark Welch. I'll be happy to have another conversation with him if he feels like we need to go back to him.
Well, there will also be a condition to be in compliance with the tree ordinance, as we've been through that once or twice tonight. Councilor Maliki, are you all set? I am trying to move things forward.
Yeah, I realize that. Maybe you could email me offline how close that the grade changes, how much grade is changing, how close to the neighbor's trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Maliki. Okay, last word, we're going back to Councilor Laredo before we get some motions from Councilor Downs.
So I just want to speak for a moment or two. You know, look, one of the beauties of the special permit process is while we try to have consistency, which is important, we also allow for individuality. And the special permit process designed precisely so we can take each individual project and look at it separately within guidelines and then apply our discretion to that particular situation. Here, I know colleagues, number one, they have complied with the tree ordinance. The ordinance is in place. They've complied with it. They've dealt with Mark Walsh. That's the appropriate way to go. I also note that we have letters from the people directly behind these folks on one side of them and across the street, all in favor of the project. And really, our FAR type of concerns are designed to protect the immediate abutters. That's what FAR is there for. So we don't have a building that towers over another building. That's a concern. Here we have the folks, they've done, and I'm sure with the guidance of Attorney Lee, who's quite capable in these areas, they obviously went out, they talked to all their neighbors, they presented them with their plans, and the neighbors not only had no objection, but sent us letters of support. So again, I just think this is the right thing to do. I think we should approve it this evening, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, President Laredo. Back to you, Counselor Downs, to make a couple of motions.
Right, so I'm going to make a motion to close the public hearing and to approve.
Great. All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. We have a motion to approve, so we'll take a look at the findings and conditions.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we do have an approval order, the standard findings that indicate, the massing is consistent with the neighborhood. The construction of the single-family dwelling will not adversely affect the neighborhood, as it will be in keeping with the massing of other buildings in the neighborhood. It also complies with all other dimensional standards. The proposed site design meets all parking and circulation requirements and retains current curb cut and driveway access to the site. Lastly, the dwelling is consistent with the diversity of size, scale, design of other structures because the massing is consistent with other single-family homes, which vary in scale and appearance, especially on the other side of the street is a home more typical of the one proposed. We have the standard conditions, so the plan referencing condition, standard building permit, and then lastly, standard occupancy. So pretty straightforward, standardized conditions here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wewell. We're ready to vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary, Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Good luck with your plans.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to the main attraction, and I want to apologize to everyone for how late it is. And thank you all for hanging in here, and to explain that, especially at this time of year and towards the end of a term, our agenda is more packed than our time allows us to comfortably handle. And we're trying to also be substantive and get everything done that we need to get done. Now we're going to hear from the Riverside Project, and hopefully we'll all stay awake.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm not sure if there are any members of the planning board still online. I know Mr. Doringer and Ms. Breckenridge were there, but for the record, my name is Stephen Bookbinder. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Schlesinger and Bookbinder with offices at 1200 Walnut Street in Newton Highlands. And I'm here this evening on behalf of the petitioner. Since we last met 2 weeks ago, we have submitted a variety of materials, including written responses to questions raised at our last meeting. This evening, we are going to provide some updates on site design and building design. We will then describe our proposed mitigation package, and our presentation, Madam Chair, will be very brief, especially given the lateness of the hour. I did want to report back that at our last meeting, I had raised the possibility of possibly adding elderly housing with services to the proposed project. However, due to time constraints, we've decided not to go in that direction, at least with respect to the project before you. That elderly housing option could come up at some point in the future. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Rob Adams.
Thank you. Welcome, Rob. Oh, also, we've been joined on Zoom by Councilor Krinsman.
Evening, Rob Adams, Principal Landscape Architect at Halverson Design in Boston. As Steve said, I will be quite brief. Let me get this working. All right.
I'm mentioning to you just for your benefit that we've got a timer so you can see how you're doing.
How brief I am. So what you're going to see tonight is essentially just a codifying of things that we showed you in the past. I think there's one new content, which is a crosswalk. But essentially, it's been a good dialogue between peer review, the city, And so we have essentially just recognized a lot of the amendments and changes that we've talked about in the last two meetings. So this is where we were on 10.7. You'll notice the old building 2.3, and then page down, you can see the modifications, very minor, but important to building 2 and 3. And then from a landscape perspective, just a brief highlight of all those changes that we've made. Some of them you saw last meeting, but again, I'll just go around the horn, so to speak, starting at the upper right. So we've added a raised tabletop at that primary intersection in Main Street and the Loop Drive. We've also, a very good comment from one of the peer reviewers, added a crosswalk across Main Street at the primary pedestrian entrance to the garage. As noted last hearing, we've added the 10-foot shared use pathway along Grove Street. The moving around clockwise, the play space is now open to the public with posted hours, and then have introduced a dog park along that main circulation corridor, which connects Lower Falls to Riverside to Main Street, and taking advantage of that green space that's been created there at building 2 and 3. So that is my content. I'll hand it over to Michael. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Lawson. I've been with you before, principal at Minot and Wasco, architects and planners. Thank you, Rob. I will be brief as well, and we're just reiterating some of the changes that we made at the last hearing, showing where we were in the beginning with the original proposed building and where we are now with building 2 and 3, really being broken up into 2 buildings, allowing for this cut to really allow light and air into the courtyard and also enhance the architectural value and gateway aspect along the roundabout. We added some additional imagery here to really show the depth of what we were doing and how you can see what was originally proposed along that access road and now what we are revising it to be, really working with the urban planner that you've contracted with to understand how this is going to work, how the different style is going to happen, and how we're going to step back the building in certain ways to break down the massing. So this is one view. Next view is looking the opposite way, really showing that we have 2 distinct architectural languages, 2 distinct separation there. We have about 50 feet between those 2 buildings, and we brought in the proposal of having the dog park located there, which we think works rather nicely. One of the other comments that we received was, how does the parking garage truly work from a pedestrian realm, but also from an automotive realm? And here we put together a diagram really showing the ground floor and where the access points are. So if I go around, I'll show you, I'll start with the automotive access. We have pretty much the main entry located over here for the vehicular off of that main road that comes into Riverside. And then that allows you to go straight up to some of the MBTA parking and most of the residential parking. We also have a convenience entry located over here, which we expect to be used by most of the residences in the new neighborhood. On the ground floor, we have retail and residential visitor spaces. We have about 70 of those. And then as you proceed up the ramp, that's where we start with the dedicated MBTA, 229 spaces. After that, we go to 135 shared parking spaces. And once we get to that end of that shared parking, there will be a gate, and then there will be the dedicated residential spaces, which are 546 spaces. In terms of the pedestrian realm and how we're accessing the parking deck and how we're accessing the elevators that get you up to the higher levels, the main access way for the MBTA is through this vestibule over here, which is where we have our 2 elevators. Those access all of the levels that have MBTA or shared parking on them. We do have a second entry here that you can access then a stair, as well as then the retail parking in this area. The main area where we think that most residents, as well as the retail tenants and their parking will come in here. And this allows for a cut through to allow you to get directly to Main Street. We have added a sidewalk or a crosswalk in that location as well, so that you can get to both sides of Main Street. That was a great comment that we received. And here you can get these two elevators here access all the residential parking levels as well as all the levels of Building 6. So that really provides a convenient location so that people can access the parking as well as the retail front in front of that. We also have one additional rendering here that shows Building 6, the main entry to Building 6 for our lobby and residences, but also the activation of Building 6 along the main street. And you can see right here, this is where we have that break in the building language, where that parking entry for the pedestrian is located. You can see a canopy as well as a parking sign, as well as a blade sign, really denoting that that's the location where this is going, where a lot of people are going to be going. You can see the crosswalk that has been added, as well as the large sidewalk in front of Building 6 that allows for outdoor dining and retail presence located there. You can also see the architecture vernacular in terms of the bay windows, the different levels of coloration on the different fiber cement, really breaking down the scale and creating retail presence along that main street. So that leads us back to just the larger image of our new gateway into Riverside to kind of bring it all together for what we're proposing. We're really excited to have this project move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. So far, good on the timing.
Yes, and I'll close this out very quickly with a slide, one slide only on the mitigation. As you can see, coming from the top down, the total package is $7,030,000. From that, we are deducting the 25% that goes into the I&I fund, which leaves a net allocated to the neighborhood of $5,374,000, of which we're maintaining the $1.5 million that we previously had for the Williams School contribution, and also deducting another $30,000 for a sound wall feasibility study for the neighborhood over in Lower Falls, which was a request by Councilor Krinsman that we've agreed to, and we've added that $30,000 to what was an even $7 million, for a total of $7,030,000, and that leaves $3,844,000 net for the neighborhood improvements that will go into a fund to be dispersed in accordance with however the city council sees fit. Thank you, and that ends this evening's presentation. Oh, sorry.
So that is our presentation. I just, is a little bit of a summary. Our understanding is that we're in very good shape in terms of transportation, civil/stormwater, and fiscal. Most of our efforts the last 2 weeks have been addressed at site design and building design. We've received tremendous input from Mr. Mountjoy from the planning department, which we appreciate, and we've tried to be responsive. I think we couldn't do everything that was suggested, but we've tried to do the best we can. And that's it, and we're here to answer questions.
Thank you very much for being so concise and brief. We'll hear from the planning department and some of the peer reviewers at this point, I think.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kat Kemet from Planning. I'm going to defer comments from Planning at this point. We issued our memo, which addressed the topics that we wanted to put out there. And I will kick it over to our peer reviewers. We have two with us this evening. We have Corinne Tobias from Green, who will speak briefly to traffic and transportation, and Alan Mountjoy from NBBJ. So Corinne, if you could start. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Corinne Tobias from Green International. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, quite loud.
Got it. I just wanted to touch briefly on the status of the transportation peer review. We have received the most recent letter from VHB and the petitioner. And I'll share my screen very briefly just to go over kind of the status of our comments and just a moment. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, no, it's coming. Yes.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to go over kind of what our previous comments were and where we are today. So our major comments that were outstanding at the last hearing were about rideshare and delivery availability, traffic calming measures along Main Street, adding a bike connection between Grove Street and the MBTA station, providing signage plans for the restricted left turns into the site on Grove Street, providing fire truck turning movements, and clarifying which TDM measures the applicant is committed to implementing. So at this time, we've received the latest letter from the petitioner, and they have made verbal commitments to provide these measures for the most part, the signage to the pickup and drop off areas. As pointed out in the latest plan, they have added the traffic table and the additional crossing along Main Street. They've added an additional section of the shared use path along Grove Street to get people closer to the station. And they've committed to providing the additional signage plans. We haven't actually seen the final site plans at this point prior to the meetings. So once we do receive those, we'll review them, just to make sure that we have no additional comments. But this time, based on what has been promised and has been said will be provided, we don't believe we'll have any major comments at that point. There may be some minor tweaks to the site plan, but we don't anticipate any additional major comments. So with that, I'm happy to take any additional questions from the board or the planning board or the council.
Thank you, Ms. Tobias. I think we're still going to hear from another consultant, then we'll do questions at the end for everyone.
Yes, that's correct. We're also joined tonight by Alan Mountjoy from NBBJ.
I need to turn on my microphone. Thank you. Alan Mountjoy with MBBJ. Last week we had a offline conversation with the developer, and we saw lots of good things moving forward. I would like, maybe Kat, you can share the presentation that I had previously presented. It's just a checklist. I would like to say that there are several things that they have done really well, which I think were presented here about breaking up building 2-3, which was a great, I think, improvement. I think that they've also provided us with additional shadow studies and answered questions. They've extended the bike path or a multi-use path to Riverside Park. So all those are good things. We have a couple of remaining items that we think might be worth mentioning to this group here to understand where a few additional items might still be tweaked in order to make this plan a better plan. So the first one was about building 6, and our first comment has been answered in many ways by the addition of what has been called the cut through, which is a way to get from the parking garage ground floor to Main Street, which is a really important thing for the retail customers. I think it's important to note, however, and unless I'm wrong, the MBTA passengers cannot get to the cut through. They are pushed to the north side of the garage. So attempts by MBTA users to stop and get a coffee or a newspaper are a bit thwarted by the plan as it currently stands. They're sort of shunted off to the station and not really included in that. And I don't think, I might be wrong on that, but I wanted to make sure that that was understood because we had that comment. And it seems like it's a way to invigorate Main Street by having the MBTA users be able to access that. We also commented on the size of the lobby. the respondent has said that that lobby is needed for at work in sort of event, or I should say home or home office space of some sort on the ground floor. I guess our thought was that having more retail space would be better than a big lobby there, which we didn't think would be very well activated. The lobby does seem oversized to us currently. So if you go to the next slide, the other one was about the corner, which again, if you rush through, I'll try to get through this quickly. We're very happy with that, that they have broken down the mass of building 2-3. I have a rendering of that next, which, oh, that was, you can go to the next one. Next one. Oh, okay, nothing there. All right. Never mind. You've seen the renderings of the new building 2-3. We not to harp on this issue about the open space and solar access, but we did want to continue to suggest that the main public space still feels like it's overshadowed by the buildings that are immediately to the south and the east of it. And then a little bit of the shadow study helps us understand that. So this certainly shows a lovely park at noon on the equinox. I think what's a little bit less, I guess, satisfactory, even though the proponent has moved much of the activated open space further to the north in order to catch a little gap of sun between building 2, 3, and 4. If you go to the next slide, we still have this kind of difficult situation where the little, what I call the tab on the end of building 2, 3 still acts as a very large shadowing element on that prime public space. And just a suggestion, this was before they moved a lot of their units to building 1 by making it 1 story taller in order to create that gap in building 2, 3. There was a suggestion that we made about lowering the height of that little tab. It has about 6 units in it per floor. By lowering that 2 levels, you'd lose 12 units, but you would restore sunlight to that common open space and make that little tab building a little bit more special, as opposed to sort of monolithically tall like everything else is on the site. So if you go to the next slide, again, this was a suggestion to go 5/2. They've already done it on building 1. That's great. Go to the next slide. This is the sort of the view of what I call the tab, which sticks out. And if you go to the next slide, you can see one thought is that that tab that sticks out there is the same height as everything else. If you go to the next slide, the idea of sort of cutting that down a little bit in order to reduce the height and the shadow and the sort of looming over the public open space might do a lot to make that open space better. And incidentally, that little tab building might actually be useful as a kind of a community space or some kind of integrator between the playground up on Grove Street and the public spaces down at the bottom. In other words, instead of 2 separate worlds, they might feel more like one kind of public space from the upper level at 35 feet above down to the lower level. If that was thought about as, I know there was talk about a gym space or something. So I'm showing a climbing wall here that might be 2 stories tall and connects the lower level with the upper level. Something like this, which integrates these 2 spaces together. Just a thought. Moving on. And again, the idea of sort of a heightened or a sloped play space that could take advantage of the grade changes on the site really is an opportunity to think about how children's play. This is at City Hall Plaza. There are many examples around the world where elevation actually makes a much more exciting play space than just a flat playground. So if you go to the next slide, this is in Seattle. And it's been sort of a general concern that we've had is that the play space and now the dog park always seem like they're kind of pushed off to the side of the site and not allowed to be a generator of activity. In fact, the only active recreation that they've mentioned is the playground for the kids. Everything else is pretty passive, frankly. So why wouldn't that be a good thing to have integrated with your retail space? And I wish Jesse Birkin were here to sort of elaborate on how that adds value to a retail environment to have places where kids are playing and such. Next slide. And I'm going to try not to make this too much longer. I make a personal plea, not necessarily to the developer at this point, because I think they've bent over backwards to create connections to the larger community. But the question of safe routes to school came up at the last meeting. And it seems to me that the last remnant of that is the underbridge environment under the MBTA track. If you go to the next slide, this is really not a great condition. There's sightline issues, there's sun in your eyes at evening commuter hours, and there's a really tight set of sidewalks here with some obstacles in them. And despite the fact that we've created this wonderful multi-use path that's separated from the highway, everybody's going to have to force their way through this little spot here, which is about 5 feet wide. And I can just imagine the kind of conflicts that might occur with students and commuters and everybody trying to get through this little spot, because you can't use the sidewalk on the other side because it doesn't go anywhere. So the safe route to school is on the north side where it is. So I'll lay that issue on you to raise or to carry on if you think it's suitable. It is slightly off-site. Okay. So the last one is, again, we are really impressed by the work that they've done to extend the pathway system through Riverside to Riverside Park. We think that's a great addition to their obligation or their offering. Go to the next slide. We haven't yet seen what that really looks like, because there's been several questions about what happens to Recreation Road. Is it completely abandoned and just turned into a path, and then the access to Riverside Park is after the on-ramp? I think we would like to see some more concrete plans of what that actually looks like, together with the highway and DCR. What does that eventually look like? It's not clear to me at all how that is resolved at the end of the day. And then, of course, I think, yeah, you can go on. These are all additions. We talked about the trail, talked about, keep going, I guess. Sorry. My sort of next to last biggest question is the bike parking. And there was a comment yesterday or last week that they're not providing any public bike parking. And at least for commuters, specifically designated for commuters in the parking garage. And I pointed out that on my inspection of the station, the existing parking spaces at the Riverside station are woefully inadequate, as well as the walking way get there. But if you see the bike racks, there's about 6 bike racks there, which seems a little unfortunate. And also, in the same way that they have public parking in the parking garage in order to get people to utilize the retailers, why wouldn't they have bike parking in that parking garage in order to encourage people to use the retailers before or after work? I would think it would be a thing they'd like to have. So you can go on. Right now, this bike parking at the north end of the garage is for residents only. But if that could be added to in order to make that a place where commuters could park under shelter with video surveillance, et cetera, it might feel a little safer for people to park their bikes within the retail area and walk after picking up a coffee and walk over to the station. So seems to me it's a win-win for everybody. Keep going. This has been answered. They didn't show the plans today, but they have figured out a way to program the main square, which is great. We're very satisfied with that. We think that's it can be well programmed. And then I will keep going because this is redundant to what we talked about before. And I already mentioned the shadow study, so I don't need to go into any depth on how we think that the central square still feels a little bit dark. So if we can skip through those. I'd culled these out previously. And so lastly, I just want to talk about the children's play area, which I already have, about the opportunity for it to enrich the cultural life here and have it be more of a central feature. if you go to the next slide, again, it was somewhat redundant, but this children's play area seems somewhat removed from the life of the project. So, and I apologize for rambling on, but I think these are all redundant. Okay, thank you. That's it for those are my items to raise as we move forward. Thank you.
Ms. Kemet, do you have anything else or anybody else?
No, that is all for now, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who's still hanging in. What we should try and do tonight is to talk about, are the changes we heard about going in the right direction? Are there things we can firm up and agree on? We need to start to bring some clarity and closure to this project and to give back to the developer so that they can present their final plans to the planning department, and we can move forward with trying to get a council order organized and do this all before the end of the term. So if you can think about your comments or questions tonight relating to the changes that we heard about, that would be very helpful. I do want to ask if anyone from the public, I just wanted to I'd like the public to think about that too. I would like all comments tonight to be focused on how we can try and talk about what the changes have been presented. So going to the public, Ms. Belleville.
I'll be very brief. Mary Lee Belleville, 136 Warren Street, Newton Center. I've attended all of these meetings. I have tried as much as I can to raise a red flag about the impact to the public regarding the loss of parking at the MBTA station. I've not heard anything that addresses that. My concern is the public competing with the residents for parking, the cost and time limit constraints that will be put on the public that use the MBTA station. At this point, I have to conclude that these concerns haven't risen to a level that would cause anybody to respond. So I guess I'll just drive to work because I don't want to drive up to Riverside and have a sign that says lots full, but go on over to Woodland and you can park there. So it's just I rest my case. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Belleville, for reiterating that point. Any other members of the public? Anyone on Zoom like to speak? Question, comment? No, everyone is tired. Public hearing is still open. We will take that into committee then. I see the first hand is Councillor Downs.
And I'll be very brief. I think this is going in the right direction. I love the ideas of the city consultant about the playground, the shared landscape space, and taking advantage of the slope. And I agree about the sunlight. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I too want to thank the peer reviewer, Mr. Mountjoy and NBBJ for its work. I think your comments have been very helpful so far, and they're continuing to be helpful. I think the issue around park space, which the NBBJ comments have already improved, we really need to maximize the park space. That will make this a more successful project for everyone and make it a more desirable place to live. And that's, I think, everybody's goal. So I hope the developer can continue to think about how all of this public space will interact and try and emphasize the role of parks in making this successful development. Ms. Belleville's comments about parking are understandable. And I wonder if the developer has plans for how the electronic information regarding available parking will be displayed, where it will be displayed. Is that information that can be made available in real time online so that a commuter such as Ms. Belleville would be able to know that there is parking available and where it is and how she can get there without risking a detour to Woodland. So those are very important things. I have to, I mean, despite the responses that we've received to our issues last time, questions about the commercial viability of a hotel remain on my mind. I understand the information that's been provided to us. I think we're all getting increasingly sensitized to the city's budget shortfall, the need for commercial activity. There is a long history of a hotel being operated on this site. So that's still very much on my mind. And I guess that's it for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Councillor Leary?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's very late and I'm getting very tired, but I wanted to see if there would be okay to ask questions about the affordable units this evening. So I understand there will be about 100, there'll be 15% of the project, or 113 apartments would be available to households at 50 to 80% of AMI. We're averaging 65%. And then about 38 apartments would be available at 110% AMI for a total of 151 affordable units. And I just wanted to check on the benefits of having those additional 38 units at 110% AMI when we really have a great need for more in the 50 to 80% range, and perhaps even advocating for some possibly below 50% AMI. And I'd like to get the breakdown for the number of bedrooms for these inclusionary units and support more 3 bedrooms to bring more families into the area. I don't know if that's going to be for tonight or are people too tired, but I wanted to get that out there. A couple other things. I wanted to double check that the plan, is there going to be a bicycle connection between the Grove Street and the Riverside MBTA station? I thought that was a recommendation that a connection be added for the safety of bicyclists navigating the Riverside station.
Let me just cut in and say that's a yes.
That's a yes. Okay. Are breweries a use here? Would that be a brewery? Would that be something could it be considered? Yeah.
I'll have to check, Counselor. We've never discussed a brewery. I'd have to go back and look at the zoning, but we've never had a discussion about a brewery.
Okay.
I don't know if you think that's a good idea or a bad idea.
I think it's a good idea. I voted for it in the zoning and planning when we specified breweries.
All right, we'll check on that. We'll report back.
And then the area between the MBTA parking lot and the project itself, could that be beautified with some landscaping or screening or something like that?
Well, I'm gonna ask David Roach to answer that in a sec, but let me go back on a couple of points. First, I just wanted to say, and I have discussed the hotel concept with both Councilors Block and Lucas. it's not going to happen here. I appreciate it's been raised. It's not going to happen. Robert is a very experienced developer. Robert ran the Hotel Indigo for quite a while. And although he's a very nice guy, he's really in this to make money. If Robert Core felt that a hotel was viable and that a hotel could be located here, it would be in the plans. And he's explored it. It's not in the plan. So that's all I can say about that. On the affordability issue, I think we're now up to 152 units because we went from 750 to 757. So I see Councilor Lucas nodding. I think we went to 152. Councilor Leary, Robert in the past has been very generous about going with increased affordability on other projects. This thing is so tight. I don't see a path to do more than the 15% and the 5% here.
Well, I know he has in the past, so that's why I thought
No,
it's
and it's
definitely worth asking.
It's a fair ask. I just think, and Robert could amplify this, but this project is, it's really challenging. It's really tight. And Robert, do you want to say anything more than that? And he's always very upfront about this.
I'm channeling Maria here,
So,
okay?
I understand that. So Council Larry, I do appreciate the ask. You know, I would love to do everything that's requested here, but you know, as Councilor Bookbinder just mentioned, I got to get this deal built this time. And you know, believe it or not, even with the $15 million subsidy coming from the state, you know, they're pitching in here to make this deal work economically. You know, that's for the offsite improvements. They've set aside 15 million in the CIP. Even with help like that, you know, the economics are just tight on this deal. We have an extraordinary amount of parking, additional parking we have to build for MBTA. And, you know, there's just only so much the project can bear. It does pain me to have to say no to you. You're a very kind person, and I want to say yes, but I just.
Well, I've heard no before, don't worry.
Well, thank you for understanding.
Um,
And in regards to the beautification of the MBTA parking lot, yeah, MBTA wants us to leave that parking lot alone. We are talking to them about, you know, putting over a fresh coat of binder, make it look cleaner and nicer. But in terms of making substantial improvements to the lot, not only can't the project bear the cost, MBTA has requested that the lot remain as is. So
Oh, okay.
that's the deal with them.
I just received separate text messages from Kathy Winters, my colleague who's in North Carolina helping us, a relative who's ill, and Brent McDonald, who's out on the West Coast. Craft breweries up to 10,000 square feet are allowed by right, over 10,000 square feet by special permit in the mixed-use 3 zone. So we can't have a brewery, and I'm going to have Robert look into that first thing tomorrow.
That's great. Thank you. And one last thing, I know that there was funds for the Williams School. And, you know, there's been a lot of discussion about improving the playground there. How would that money actually be allocated? Who would make the decision? Would the school department make that decision?
Okay, so I can answer part of this. We've allocated the 1.5 million. This, by the way, was in consultation with the Ward 4 counselors. We also had some input from the mayor through planning. Everybody thought that was right. In the draft council order that we're writing up, I've tried to make it very broad, so it specifically calls out enhancement of the playground with an eye toward making it fully accessible. My understanding is these funds, although they're allocated to Williams, I'm not sure actually, I probably have to defer to Mr. Leogiona. The other mitigation funds have to be approved under city municipal finance law by both the city council and the mayor. I don't know if this 1.5 is the same or if this goes directly, but I will try to find that out.
Okay, thank you very much.
But that was the Williams School enhancements were a major item under consideration.
Right. Okay, I'm all set.
Thank you, Counselor Leary. Counselor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Down said earlier that this is headed in the right direction, and I would agree with that. I like the changes to the building. I think that's building 2-3, where you have that opening, and you've added some more massing to some of the other buildings to increase the building count to 757. I think that's the right move. I just want to follow up on what Miss Belleville had to say about the parking, as I'm still a little unclear about it. According to the planning memo, there's going to be 1,112 parking spaces. I hope that's correct. Yeah. Okay. How many parking spaces are there now at the Riverside parking lot? Just so that we can get an idea of, is the same number of parking stalls going to be available for commuters taking the train?
Good evening, David Roach with the development team. There's 960 approximately spaces today. The MBTA, as part of the ground lease with them, has requested a total of 650, which exceeds their average daily parking number by a significant amount, and is available to account for those, as we addressed during the, I think it was last hearing, the 5 or so days a year where it might, get up to that big number.
So there'll be, you said 650?
650 available to commuters in total.
And there's 960 today. What's the average daily count, for the parking lot today? Just
according to the MBTA, it's in the 200 to 300 range.
Oh, so it's way under so you're saying there's a lot of excessive parking there on site today?
That is correct.
Okay, I see Councillor Block over there, and I have a feeling he wants to say something, but I'll leave that.
This is, oh,
Hold
sorry.
on. I'll leave that up to the chair to call on him if that's, I can't call on you. Those are the rules. But according to Mr. Roach, there's a lot of excessive parking on site right now. So it looks like there should still be excessive parking with the new counts. So I just wanted to make sure that there was going to be enough parking. So I'll leave it at that for now. I'm all set.
Thank you. Counselor Block.
Oh,
Very briefly, I think this does not include, was it 286 parking stalls that are remaining under the MBTA's control? And so if you want to sort of compare it to what apples to apples, you need to add, I think it's 286.
Yeah, 286
That's
that
right.
would remain are a subset of that 650. So I guess if you're doing the math, if there was 1,114 was the number, if you add that to the 286, that's the total between the MBTA parking exclusive and the development parking.
Right. Okay. So you're getting a lot. I mean, there's definitely excess parking at this location.
can I just, so 286 plus the 1112, so you're looking at something close to 1,400 total parking spaces.
Right. There'll be approximately 1,400 compared to 963 today. Recognizing the 963 today, their typical daily usage, I'm not talking about a major event happening in the city, is somewhere in the 250 range. They're nowhere close to pre-COVID levels, and they don't see it coming back. So, and the beauty of this deal is this go around on the parking side is they're maintaining, ownership of the parking lot that has the 286 surface stalls. And believe me, if ridership reaches a level where the 650 that they have as part of this development isn't sufficient, they'll build their own parking garage to support more commuter use. So,
Thank you. I appreciate Mr. Roach, Mr. Korf, and Councillor Block.
So though on a daily basis, the lot seems very underutilized for special events and game days, it sounds like there will still be enough. And the question about the signage will be worked on, which is, I think those were the things that Ms. Belville, who's already spoken once, so I wasn't going to call on you again, Ms. Belville, unless we have missed the core of what you're trying to get at here. Councillor Lipoff.
I was just going to say that I agree with the last two speakers regarding the numbers with parking. They seem very generous and comfortable for the site, given the way that people work today, 40% from home in Newton, and I'm quite comfortable with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lipoff. Ms. Belville, I do see your hand still up.
Yes. Thank you for calling on me again. I'm just coming from a place of a lived experience. When I get to Riverside to park by 8 o'clock, there's 2 lots. And I've just offered anecdotal data, which is not really data, but I'm just saying what I'm hearing is not my lived experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Belville. Councillor Albright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to add that I too am happy with the changes that I've seen, but this gentleman, the peer reviewer, whose name I forget, I'm sorry, but the last 6 or 8 comments that he made tonight, you know, those details, for example, providing opportunities for the travelers to use the commercial, right, providing an easy opportunity for that to happen. And maybe you've done it and maybe you just know. But it seems to me that those details are the things that will really make this project sing. And I hope you'll pay attention to all of the suggestions that he's made.
You're referring to Mr. Mountjoy's
Yes, thank you.
suggestions.
Yeah.
Yes. Councillor Lipoff, is your hand is back up?
Yes, it is. I'm just curious for accuracy here. Miss Belville lives just off of Langley Road, within a 1-minute walking distance of the D line, which is Newton Center. I'm just curious why she's driving out to Riverside. There may be a good reason instead of getting on the train right in Newton Center where she lives.
Well, Councillor Lipoff, as the former chair of this committee, you know that back and forth conversation during public comment is not my favorite thing. So you can have that conversation another time with Miss Belville.
I appreciate that, Chair Kelly. I'm just so curious to it. I just had to ask, but thank you. I respect your decision.
We're not going to do that on the floor tonight, given the hour especially, but we're all curious about that, Miss Belville. Any other comments before we all get punchy or fall asleep? Yes, Councillor Lobovitz.
I do have a question about the inclusionary zoning. If we're concerned about making it more accessible to lower income families, is it possible to trade off the 110% to a smaller number of units for people who have less income? Is that, or the ordinance is fixed and that's what it has, that's the formula, you can't adjust?
I'm going to let Councillor Albright answer that for you.
Great.
So just to keep everybody aware, the Zoning and Planning Committee is on the verge of passing a new inclusionary zoning ordinance, and it will probably not have in it the 110%. There will be a new number for the other pieces, and there'll be no more 110%. And that's likely to pass very soon.
Would that, I'm sorry, could it just
Go ahead.
follow up?
Yes.
So would that new rule apply to this project or not?
I believe it will, but I am going to ask, do we have somebody from the law department or perhaps Ms. Kyra?
I can respond to that. They would likely have the option as if this special permit is granted prior to that ordinance change, they would have the right to utilize this ordinance, but they could also elect to utilize the new ordinance as long as they apply for a building permit after the effective date, which would be likely.
I'm not familiar with all the details of the potential new ordinance, but would that allow them then to do what I mentioned before, which is trade off the 110% for fewer of those units, but at a lower level, I think you know what I mean.
AMI.
Right, AMI, yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but financially, that's not a trade-off. That makes sense usually for a developer because you have to pay more for those lower AMI units. So, I mean, the developer can answer the question. I don't see how that could be a trade-off of reducing the number of 110% for say more at 50, fewer units at 50%.
Right, so you'd have more market-based units.
Oh, I see. You make up the difference with market-based,
Correct.
Mr. Korf?
Correct.
Well, I think, Steve, and the board, of course, the dilemma here is that if we put aside the fact that the current ordinance is being amended, most likely in this regard, eliminating the 110 tier, as it stands today with the current ordinance, we wouldn't be in compliance. Even if I said, hypothetically, I could turn the full 5% from 110 to 50 to 80% AMI, legally it can't be done because you're not meeting the requirement of the current ordinance, which has that 110% tier. So it can't be done as it exists today. However, as Councilor Albright pointed out, if the new ordinance, which is being debated now, gets passed, they're eliminating that tier. And then we would have the option, as I understand it from Ms. Kyra, to opt into either one. Unfortunately, if you asked me today to compare the two from a financial perspective, what's being discussed in the new ordinance would be more onerous, to be honest, economically, because I believe that the new ordinance is being discussed by eliminating the 5% tier and adding another 3.5% to the 15% tier for a total of 18.5%. The break-even point mathematically, if you run the math, and that's what, of course, we have to look at, would be somewhere, it's about in between 17 and 17.5%. So in other words, if you were telling me today that the current ordinance that's being drafted now and might get voted in was going to 17 or perhaps 17.5%, I would tell you today, well, I would opt in to that given the choice, but not at 18.5. So.
Okay, I'm just, asking for consideration of making more units available to lower income families. That's all. And to do whatever you can to do that, to accomplish that. Thank you.
And for Maria Greenberg and Engine 6.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to add that we've talked internally. Our intent is to create the final plan set, which Ms. Tobias alluded to, and to have those into me by Monday, November 3rd, with the thought that we would be able to file those by Tuesday, November 4th, which would give Ms. Kemet and her team and the peer review team and all of you a full 2 weeks before we come back on November 18th. So we appreciate the additional comments tonight. I think it's fair to say we're going to consider everything. We give great deference to Mr. Mantua's recommendations. I've worked with him on other projects. I think he's terrific. It's unlikely we're going to be able to do everything he suggested, but we're going to try to get as close to yes as we can.
Thank you. And with that, we don't have any more hands up. I think you have gotten some good feedback, a lot of comments that things are, is your hand up, Councilor Block, or are you just, it is up?
It is, but I'm
Okay,
willing
I
to
was
make,
to wrap
no,
up.
no, I'm willing to make a motion when you are
Great.
ready.
I'm going to be really quick about this wrap up. I want to say that I think we have heard many people say things are going in the right direction. You've got a few other comments on topics which you took notes of. I don't need to reiterate. I think your timing, Mr. Bookbinder, sounds perfect. If it gets later than that, I'm not sure what we'll all do with it. And now let's go to Councillor Block.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you everybody for bearing with this discussion so late. I can't, before I make these motions, I just have to say that that I'm still concerned, as NBBJ indicated, about the traffic pattern exiting this parcel, and whether where Mass DOT and where Federal Highway Administration are in all of this. But that's for another night. So I'm going to make a motion to keep the public hearing open and to hold the item.
And I'm glad you brought that up again. So that's something they can be thinking about. So thank you very much for that. Land Use Committee, let's do a voice vote in favor of keeping the public hearing open. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Is anyone opposed? I don't know if someone is still here from the Planning and Development Board. Lee Breckenridge, are you able to make that motion? Shall we just consider the public hearing kept open for the Planning and Development Board if they don't have a representative here?
I think they had continued it to their own
Oh,
meeting.
okay, they're already continued. Perfect. And then there's a motion to hold?
Yes.
Let's
motion to hold. Yes.
Thank you. Let's do a voice vote on that one. Oh, sorry, no, a name. Roll call. No, too late.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs, Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo.
Aye.
Motion is held 7 with 1 absent.
Good night. We're adjourned. Sad to say, I'm happy it's before 10:30.